I'm starting over 1,000 years ago in the early medieval period. Our base is the Royal Armoury's tilt yard, but there are no knights in shining armour jousting here today. Instead, it's just me and the Armoury's top medieval coach, Andy Dean. Andy, how you doing?
Good to see you. You well?
Very good to see you, man. And today we're talking about this, aren't we? I mean, what is it with medieval warfare? When I think about it, I know there's all sorts of weapons and weapon systems, but the sword, it is like an icon of the period.
I think partly because of its cost. I mean, getting the metal together and then heating it and doing all the various processes to make an extraordinarily sharp weapon, it takes a lot of time and energy to make it, and then even more time and energy to practice to become efficient. So it's only the top echelons of society are ever going to be able to afford a weapon of such beauty and deadliness. I would only expect the sort of top 5–10% of the fighting force would have a sword of real class. The rest would have axes, bastardized farming utensils, pointy sticks.
Can I pick it up?
Of course you may.
Look,
it is extraordinarily sharp.
Oh, is it?
And this one, as you can see, the pattern welding in it is quite extraordinary. So 8th, 9th century Saxon sword, obviously a beautiful replica and razor sharp.
Is it just because they look good, or is it a very versatile weapon as well? Because you've got a stab, a slash, and then a useful little...
Yeah, I think it's a versatile weapon in the sense that, exactly, you've got two cutting edges. It's heavy in the blade, so it's that concussive blow. It comes down onto your collarbone or it breaks bones underneath. And the slicing and the slashing that goes with a sword that is beautifully treated and annealed and such like means that it cuts through not only skin and bone, it sort of cuts through to the fresh air the other side, if you don't have protection on. That's why protection was so important, but protection was also fairly exclusive as well. And so an entire army, say at Hastings, not everyone would have the mail shirt you'd believe if you saw the Bayeux Tapestry.
The Bayeux Tapestry captures a vivid scene of the brutal Battle of Hastings in 1066. Most of the fighters are carrying spears or bows, but some elite warriors are armed with swords, on foot and horseback, and they're inflicting terrible injuries. Going back up to 500 years before Hastings, I recently came up close with actual early medieval weapons from the 5th and 6th century Anglo-Saxon cemetery discovered at the HS2 excavations near Wendover. Lots of spears of every size emerged from the ground, and a single sword found buried with an elite male. It was almost certainly pattern welded, made of bars of folded iron beaten together, just like the replica at the Royal Armouries. So, as I'm standing here talking to you, I'm embarrassed to admit my arms get a bit tired.
It's heavy. it's a pig, but if you train with it all your life, it's like anything in life. It becomes an extension of you.
I've been wielding my phone, not wielding a sword. That's the problem.
But it's that single-handedness. So I mean, the hammer effect is intensified in this early medieval sword compared with later swords where the pommel was further down. You've got the possibility of using a second hand and then it becomes much more wieldy. But this, as I say, with the chopping, slashing attacks, you basically got to keep the sword moving. Doing that is going to be hard work, but if you can wheel it and move it around your shield.
There's stories about passing it from father to son, all that kind of stuff. Presumably this was an heirloom and a very special object.
I mean, it will forever be a sword if you keep it well. And what you find is swords that have been used, you find that there's a little sort of curve here and then another little curve here, minute, but it means that people have been using the sword time and time and again, attacking with that part of the blade and defending the opponent with this part of the blade. So as the blade gets older, it sort of becomes almost like an hourglass. So yeah. Keep sharpening it, keep looking after it, keep oiling it, and pass it on to your son or daughter.
So can you show me some basic drills? I'm dying to have a go.
Yes, is the answer. We'll set you up, we'll swing the sword around, make sure you're nice and safe, and then we'll put something for you to hit.
The Anglo-Saxon period was frequently a time of conflict, with wars between rival kingdoms and the threat from Viking invasions. The art of the time often shows spears and axes, but swords were at the heart of the fighting too. Right, what's first? What do I need?
One sword for the use of.
Thank you.
And one shield.
Do you know, shields sound kind of technical, don't they? But that is just a big old piece of wood.
Well, often it was laminated, then sort of covered in rawhide and such like. But yeah, intensity, it's basically a mobile wall, isn't it? And the heavier you make it, the more you feel defended. But of course, that limits its use.
But yeah, my arm, you can already feel that, can't you? Yeah.
You can.
Okay.
Right, so obviously the sword, if you're in a tight press, so if I'm here and you've got somebody there, all you can really do is...
Bit of stabbing like that.
Stabbing,
Bit of stabbing like that.
And come underneath.
Under.
Yeah. Do everything you can as well.
Nasty.
But you'd bring the shield up to protect your head when you did that. But now the shield wall is over.
Okay.
Exploded open, and now you've got to use the shield to defend everything on your left-hand side while using that effectively.
Yeah.
Effectively means a fighting distance. So if I'm here, your sword's no good other than using pommel.
Okay.
Yeah, smash, or even the cross, just smash, get me away.
Yeah.
Once I've been thrown off by, now, the areas you'd go for, imagine I've got the helmet on, there's still areas that are unprotected. The neck, inside the arm, back of the hamstrings is an excellent one. So working around. So if you were going to, don't cut me in pieces, but if you were going to come down, just show me how you come down. Good. Now, if I was really good, I'd move my leg at the same time. So you've got a lot of energy. So step forward.
Oh, God, okay.
There,
like
perfect.
Yeah.
Then step back, you draw the cut back, and if you're going to do the same with the leg, step forward, step, get that leg, and now draw back. It's when you cut with the sword, it's not in. Well, that breaks the bones.
Yeah.
It's either sliding it forward or sliding it back that cuts the meat.
That's nasty.
Yeah. And once you've done that, so do that again, cut me in the hamstring, I've gone down, you pull back, go through there, out the other side, move on. Because anything more than 2 or 3 moves, and it's not me who kills you, it's my mate to the left or the right or the bloke who's got behind you. So you can't remain static for very long because you become a target, literally a tree to be chopped down. So that movement is everything. And then, of course, you've only got about 2 or 3 minutes of energy before you're utterly broken. So you need to then find, if you can.
Yeah.
Find somebody else, find help, find the flag fluttering in the breeze that says that that's your household and you need to get back over there, because numbers are your safety rather than really weapons. So, shall we have a go with the sharp one?
Is that what, that's blunt, that one?
Well, yeah, I didn't want you to kill me.
Okay.
So Dan, we've got our test cutting mat here. If you're going to cut through this way, make sure that your body is either central or even slightly to the right. 60-degree cut, try and hit halfway down the blade, slice it through. So it comes through here. If you're going to do the same, remember, lead with the knuckles, 60-degree angle, up, hold on to the blade. We'll need it later.
Spinning off.
Right, I'll get the sharp one and we'll have a go.
Right, Andy, this is the sharp edge here. That is sharp. Woo! You can shave with that. So that way, yeah?
Yeah, so wider stance, yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Don't think about cutting into it. Think about going all the way through it. There you go, come across the other side. There you go.
Woo!
Easy, isn't it?
You'd have to do, that sword does all the work,
Phenomenal.
doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it scares me even this day, after 40 years of playing swords. Doesn't take much for it to go wrong, does it?
That's ridiculous. It just felt like I was just floating and it just completely cut it off. It felt effortless.
I mean, you can see it's perfect angle and it's like a scalpel gone all the way through. And this is the same thickness as an arm and it's the same resistance as an arm.
Is that realistic?
Yeah.
So an arm would be off like that?
Yeah. Having said that,
terrifying.
if it hit this, then you got some protection.
Yeah.
But without it, it's just this bit.
But you can see why, once the shield wall breaks, there's a rout. A knight with a sword would be a terminator to all the lightly armoured people who made up the majority of the battlefield.
Find a bush to hide behind or run faster than their horse, because you're going to die.
And it just felt like a sweet. You almost didn't notice when you were going through.
No, exactly. If you keep the movement smooth and you think about going through rather than into, that's what happens to limbs.
Oh, that is properly terrifying. You can see why for generations, this was king of the battlefield. It's so effective.
And it's a sign that you are at the top of your game. If you can afford this and you wield it with that sort of efficiency, you are a man of extraordinary power, both on the battlefield and in society.
It's so instructive getting hands-on with a weapon. It's an insight into the skill required and the dangers faced by ordinary fighters on the front line of history.
Oh! Nice.
Right in the knee.
Nice. Oh, arse wipes.
All of that fire bit is inside him as well.
Oh my goodness.
Not very good shot.
No, his knee's never going to be the same. So that's the thing. That's my daughter's football goal, that is.
Sorry, Todd's daughter. I'm Matt Lewis, and as a medieval historian, podcaster and author, I'm quite often thinking, talking and writing about medieval warfare, and particularly the use of bows. But I don't really know that much about how things like this work in practice. So today I've come to meet someone who can fill me in. Weaponsmith Tod from Tod's workshop. From operating gigantic Roman ballistas to shooting longbow arrows against medieval plate armour, Tod has made it his mission to recreate and test the most infamous weapons from our past. Heck, he's even got a functioning medieval trebuchet that we launched bowling balls from a couple of years ago. It's great to meet you, Tod.
Yeah,
Thank you
you
so
too.
much for having us. What I really want to try and get at here is, could an incompetent like me, who's never picked any of these things up, use any of these weapons? Do some of them need a degree of proficiency? Are there some of them that just about any idiot could use?
I mean, you've just kind of summed it all up. Some of them any idiot can use. Some of them really are quite sophisticated and difficult, but almost all of them you can just get straight into with a base level. You're not going to be the best, but you'll accomplish something that the other side doesn't want you to do, something unpleasant to them. So we have got some spears on the end here of various kinds. We've got sort of throwing things, plumbata, axes, hurlblats, and then we've got bows. So longbow, crossbow, oh, and then staff sling. I forgot the staff sling and the regular sling.
Right, let's see what any old idiot can do then.
Well,
Where are we going to start?
We're going to start with the idiot thing, but it's more deceptive than you would think. A rock.
One of the most ancient forms of ranged combat, the hurling of stones or rocks, can be traced back to our earliest ancestors. Throughout the battles of antiquity, the sieges of the medieval period, and even the riots of today.
So you go back to the dawn of time, I don't know, 300,000-400,000 years ago, there would have been cavemen throwing rocks at each other, picking them up, smashing each other over the head. That didn't really progress for a long time. Spears came along at some point, but the rock was right there at the beginning. But the thing is, it's not just cavemen throwing rocks at each other and bad little boys in the woods. It was still a Greek and a Roman weapon. And I'm guessing, I don't know, you can probably help out, but probably medieval as well. So the Greeks absolutely used to throw rocks at each other. I think it was peltasts were the Greek rock throwers, pelting rocks. I can't remember what the Roman name was, but they were literally bodies of troops that did nothing but throw rocks at each other. The Romans, again, absolutely, they were trained, the legionaries were trained in the throwing of rocks. Because as Vegetius, one of the authors on Roman warfare said, a period author, battles are so often fought in rocky places, so teach your troops to throw rocks.
So the land is giving you a ready supply of weapons.
The land is giving you a ready supply of weapons, but of course, small stone, big stone, what size? So the Romans being the Romans, regulated what size, which is that? It's about 350 grams.
This is kind of roughly a standard Roman throwing stone.
It is a standard Roman throwing
And then
stone.
I guess like the spear, you practice with that enough, you will become more and more proficient in hitting a
Absolutely.
target with some force.
Yeah.
And making this more deadly than it will be in my hands.
Well, again, I mean, I don't know if you're a cricket player, I never really was, but you watch a cricket thrower, and it's a lighter ball, cricket ball, yeah, fine, but I think it's about 140 grams, and that's quite a lot more. But you see the accuracy and the power that they can deliver it, and baseball players over in the States, the way they can deliver those balls. You get a rock thrown at you by a baseball player or a, you know, cricket player, it's going to be accurate and it is going to be hard. You know you don't want to be there. We don't have to show people on film. You know that you don't want to be there.
Yeah, yeah. So this is the beginning of missile weapons, but it's also a really long-lasting thing because it's so simple, but it's so effective.
It's so simple, but it's so effective, yeah.
Simple and effective it may be, as long as you could aim.
So has he got a name, by the way, Al?
His name is Joe.
Joe.
He's slightly poorly from some medical experiments that he's been through. So we thought before he perishes completely, we'd see what other pain we could subject him to. And I suspect I'm going to subject him to no pain because I'm not going to hit him. Oh, absolute rubbish.
Yeah. One day I'll get him.
So assuming one day I actually got reasonably good at throwing that stone, clearly that's not today, what would be the next evolution of that? How would I refine just throwing a rock?
Well, I think that's actually quite a big rock, okay? So that's not something that you can easily throw in a sling. So the sling is what you want, but this is not the rock for it. That's going to come back for the staff sling, so that's later on. But this is the regular sling, and it throws smaller rocks. So if you have a look at that.
And so we've just literally got a small piece of leather, 2 holes, bit of cord on each side.
Incredibly basic.
Exactly what you'd imagine a sling to be.
Yeah. It's even possible to make them just woven out of one piece of string, basically, one piece of cord. But we all know the biblical story, David and Goliath. And the point about that story is it didn't matter that Goliath was a giant, and that David was small. He's got a weapon there that can break bones. So, it's absolutely feared in both Roman and medieval warfare that those are the sort of things that will break your arms and your legs, even though they're small stones. And the reason for that is they're going so darn fast.
So this is essentially a force multiplier at that point. This turns the small guy into a big guy, or a small guy who can defeat a big guy. And I guess people might have heard of like the Balearic slingers. They're quite famous. You get cultures who are good at refining this and making this into their weapon of choice on a battlefield.
Yes, absolutely. So the Balearic slingers now, it's still a tradition that they pride themselves in. So they still run their slinging competitions every year. But again, they were well known back in Roman times. So, there were whole bodies of troops which they used as auxiliary troops, Balearic slingers.
And again, we said before, this looks ridiculously simple.
It does, but it's not.
It's not.
So it really is the simplest of weapons to make. You have a piece of leather there. You can do it just with cord, very simply. This is just the way I've done mine. You have a finger loop, they all do. And that goes on your finger here and it stays attached to you. So the other half is you've got a cord with a knot. That's pinched between your thumb and finger. So effectively, we have a safety training weight here for you.
This is slings with stabilisers.
This is slings with stabilisers. So obviously you whirl it around your head, which is just one way of doing it. It's just the way that I favour. Saying that, I also have to point out I don't do this a lot, but I'll be all right. So really the trigger is your thumb and your finger and that knot, that when you're ready to release it, you open it and it just drops. I mean, it is as simple as anything can be.
But also a universal idea that, your trigger finger is there, and we will have that in bows and things like that in the future as well. There is always that element of your finger being the trigger.
Well, I think that's the bottom line, isn't it? Is that we have that computing power, that mechanical thing, that we are, in a variety of ways, our own trigger system. So I'll just show you a very gentle throw, just to show you the mechanism of what's going on with our safety shot. So just going to go a bit closer here, and then I can give it a bit more. So the weight is in the sling. So I just go back and now I'm up, right? So what I would do at this point is not carry on whirling round and round like this. Like I said, the more you do it, the sort of more you lose focus.
Ouch.
That's it. So what I'll do now, I've got a couple of lead shot in my pocket, so I'll go again, but for these, I would like you guys to step back a bit.
Wow, so I'm starting to see how specialised that weapon must be. It's not as easy as just aiming it and letting go.
No, it's really not.
I'm slightly terrified to ask, but can I have a go?
Absolutely, I'd be disappointed if you didn't. That's why you're here. So have a go and we'll see what happens. Just practice getting this swinging up into the air. So just a little bit back, a little bit forward, and then just get it up and twirling. That's it. Practice holding on right now, okay? So that's really,
And is there a knack to, is it the faster you swing it, the better? Or, not in my case, obviously, but does that generate the force behind the stone?
I mean, absolutely. So it's the old centripetal force business. So let's just say that's a metre string. So we can do some simple maths, and that means that each revolution is doing 3.2 metres of distance. Now, if you're going round and round really, really fast, that's great. If you're going even faster, it's doing that 3.2 metres at a faster speed. That's basically what you're looking for. So it's a very simple thing. The faster you're twirling it, the faster the rock is going. It's dead simple.
Dead simple? A few yards away. I was feeling confident.
All right.
I mean, it went the right direction.
It went the right direction.
It's not a bad start. It's nowhere near our target.
No, I really don't worry about that. The fact that you hit the goalpost is quite good.
With the technique pretty much sorted, it was time to hit the target.
No, I stalled partway through that, didn't I?
It's funny. It's really funny that you start thinking about it and it immediately goes wrong.
Yeah.
You have to not think. I forgot to tell you that. There's so much to tell you. But that's the thing. It's really quite a sophisticated, it's deceptively simple. It's a sophisticated weapon. What I would say though, I used to mess about with these a lot more 10 years ago. It doesn't take that much to be able to get a stone 100 metres within about a 10 metre drop, which is perfect for sort of battlefield use.
So this is reasonably learnable. You do need some skill, but you can develop that skill quite quickly.
Yes, you can. To get really good, no, but to get kind of like vaguely competent. And don't forget, by the time you get to certainly, well, medieval Roman times, my dad was Italian. He was taught by a farmer to use a sling to keep the birds off, and he got apples in exchange. That sort of transaction would have been going through history. So an awful lot of people, even if they don't use it all the time, have used it. And they're competent with it to a level.
Yeah.
Competent enough for simple battlefield use.
More competent than me.
And me, but yes. Bluntly put, yes.
So is there an evolution of this then? Is there a way that we can make this better or maybe easier for an idiot like me to use?
There's not really a direct evolution of this one, but the staff sling is superficially very similar, and of course shares half a name. And that comes back to our big throwing rock you had earlier. And it is, you'll be pleased to know, idiot-proof.
Oh, well, we'll find out, won't we? Let's go and see.
Used toward the end of the Roman period and into the Middle Ages, the staff sling, often referred to by its Latin name vestibulus, was an improvement and development of the simple sling, used during sieges and naval warfare to hurl rocks over greater distances. The weapon was used by a multitude of factions from the Romans and Carthaginians to the armies of the English, the French and the Byzantine Empire.
So, staff sling. So, first known use of this is towards the end of the Roman Empire, but all over medieval Europe. Really was 12th, 13th, 14th century. You'll see the manuscripts everywhere on sieges and even ship to ship. But what you have here is a sling. It's got the name, but it's used quite differently. So that one you twirl around, and this one, basically, it's got a little peg on the end and a loop. So you put your rock in here, and then as I come forward, you can see that it detaches and the rock will fly. It's a stick, a rope, and a bit of leather. So again, It's a very simple weapon.
And it's deceptive as well, because that looks simple, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to use. That looks simple, but you're saying that's easier to use.
Absolutely, because you don't have any timing issues because it does itself. If you want this to shoot flatter, if you like, so closer distances, you make the strings longer. If you want it to go higher, you make them shorter. The weight of the rock you put in it changes, so there's a little bit of skill if you want to get really good. But fundamentally, if you just want to throw something, well, rock-sized, over there, it really is an idiot's weapon. I could train a 10-year-old to do it. I could train I'm not going to say 80, but a 70-year-old guy could do it. They've got the energy to throw this, reasonable distance.
So effectively, this becomes idiot-proof because we're taking the idiot element out of it by having it release itself from there. So the idiot is taken out of the equation and it's a much easier weapon to use.
Fundamentally, I'll give you a little demo here. You take your rock, you put it in the sling, and then you swing the stick. If you can swing a stick and put a rock in a pouch, you can use this weapon.
So we might have found our genuine idiot's weapon.
You might well. No, I've got a better one than that. But yeah, so it is fantastic because again, you saw the size of that rock. It didn't go very far, but we'll give you a demo in a minute. It's a big chunk of stone coming from a long way up when it does 30, 40, 50 meters. And anyone can use them, 10-year-old, 70-year-old. They're just brilliant.
It really is just a dead simple thing.
It really is. It's, fantastic improvised siege weapon because it's so powerful and effective, but so simple.
Yeah.
An idiot-proof weapon sounded exactly like what I needed. But to test the accuracy properly, we needed to step back a good few yards.
So we're moving quite a bit further back. What scenario would you use this weapon in? Is this a battlefield weapon? Is it a siege weapon? I'm guessing you could get stones over walls with this.
Yeah, I think they use them all over. Partly because of the simplicity and the effectiveness, which we're about to see, because I've got that. Now, it's our rock again. I've put a nice coloured tape on it so it's easy to find. But the thing is, that's, again, if you catch, if that's falling from 30, 40 metres, it's devastating.
Yeah, it's going to break something.
Yeah, it will. And so the thing is, yes, they use them on battlefields, but this one really, really is great for sieges because it's such an improvised weapon. You can get your stick from anywhere, rope and cord and leather. It's all easily available in a town or a city. You put these on the walls and you get another 10, 15 metres range from being up there. Those rocks coming down, brilliant. But you see them a lot as well on ships. So ship-to-ship artillery, effectively, but often, again, pre-gunpowder. So what you're doing is you're throwing something, it's cheap, it's almost free. An arrow is not. But that will go half the distance of an arrow, something like that. Hits you, though, that's going to take somebody out.
So it's almost like a pre-gunpowder cannon on a ship.
Yeah, and the rapidity as well, because it's just so easy. So, you put it in, and again, remember, I am not a pro at this, but you put it in, and there you are, that's it.
That's incredible. Oh, that was so close.
That was so close. And it really is an idiot weapon. So you can throw that further. There wouldn't have been a problem with that. If I'd lightened the stone a little bit, taken, halved it maybe even, then you can give it a lot more speed and a lot more force because it's all to do with the length of the levers, basically, because we've evolved with arms this length, to work this length, to throw things this length. If you put a great big lever on you, that has all changed now. It's not the way we evolved. So we have to, rather than just do it, we have to think a bit more. So you choose the length of the stick, the length of the sling, the weight of the projectile. But you get that to what you want, and you can be devastating distances with this thing. And it is just string, leather, and a stick.
I don't like how much you've made out that this is idiot-proof because I feel like you're going to get me to have a go in a second and I'm going to prove that it's not idiot-proof.
I am going to get you to have a go in a second, and I will warrant that you won't, who knows what you'll do, but what you will not do is something that is pathetic. You won't. You will get a big rock over there, a sizable distance.
But we're going to find out. Okay, so let's give it a go. Right.
Idiot-proof.
So hooking that up. Idiot incoming. Right.
Yeah, make sure that's nice and central. Hand on the end, one about the midpoint. There you are.
Overshot the target a little bit, but it wasn't a million miles away.
Promised you idiot-proof. So that's the point.
I'm an idiot, yeah.
No, but that's absolutely the point. That is the first time you have ever used that weapon. And you've just thrown a pretty big rock, 35 metres?
And again, if that's a group of people, hopefully I've hit someone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
perfect.
brilliant. It is a brilliant weapon.
It's amazing how it appears as simple as a sling, yet the sling is so much more complicated and this isn't, because you're taking the human factor out of the release and everything else.
Yeah, it really is. If you can swing a stick, you can use this weapon.
Apparently I can swing a stick. I found my weapon.
Next one.
As nice as it was to know I could hurl a stone 35 metres, I hadn't come today to just swing sticks. And seeing that Joe hadn't taken any damage thus far, it was time to up the ante.
Right, so I feel like as an idiot at war, I might have found my weapon. Everything that we've looked at so far is kind of revolving around blunt force. We're hitting people with rocks and stones, but lots of things on the tables have points to them. And I guess a spear is the most famous variant on this kind of idea of sticking someone with something sharp from a distance. What do we have in the way of spears?
Yeah, well, we've got these fletch javelins and we've got pilum. But going back, why a spear is particularly good at injuring somebody is the rock, if you like, has energy. When it flies at you, it has energy. It hits you, but that energy is in a rock size. Now, if you take the same energy, for instance, which your arm can generate because it's now throwing a spear, that energy is not in a rock size, it's concentrated onto that point. It is literally a force concentrator. So that means that rather than just breaking a bone, bruising a muscle, whatever, it now goes through people. And this was the absolute pinnacle of armour-piercing spears. Now, not armour-piercing so much in the sense of steel, although I've certainly seen it done myself where this has been thrown through a helmet, this very spear, but particularly shields. Because even a legionary who can throw pretty well will get this to go through a shield. And the point is you've got a broad head here and then a thin shank. So when it pierces the shield, it doesn't just stop, it carries on going. And it does either, it hits you and spears you because it's travelled through your shield, or if you're lucky enough that your shield is away, you now have 30, 40 centimetres of spike on the inside of your shield that's really difficult to deal with.
And also presumably this weight pulling your shield arm down and exposing you.
Yeah, so you have to drop your shield, it's the only thing. So it's not just a spear to hurt people, it's a spear to disarm people.
It's a multi-purpose weapon.
Yeah. But the thing about this is it really required skill. So legionaries trained every week with this weapon. They absolutely competed for distance and for accuracy. That's, again, a skilled thing. You're not going to take years of training and get somebody, anybody, you, me, to be able to do that well. So I'm going to give you something that's been de-skilled. And what I mean by de-skilling is the harder an object is to use, the less people you have that can use it and the longer it takes to train them. It means it's a rare resource and it's expensive. What you want in war is an easy resource that's effective. And this is a curious thing. It's got these leather straps on, so they can be used to make this thing throw further. So we could try that or not, I don't mind. But you see them a lot in medieval artwork, often thrown by skeletons for rather odd reasons, but you see them used in sieges, you see them used in castles, in naval fighting. And the reason for that is the fletchings orient the weapon. If you throw that javelin, that pilum, the chances are it will go off. You throw this, it just goes straight. You drop it and it hits some rigging on the way down, it will straighten up. So you don't have to be an excellent throw and avoid that little bit of ropage. You just throw it down there somewhere and it will straighten
And
up.
it'll hit something. So again, this is about if we're in a situation where, you know, we're all desperately trying to defend our homes, this is something that you could be dishing out to amateurs to use, and anybody should be able to pick this up and do more damage than they would with something like that requires more practice.
The better a thrower you are, the further you will get that. But anybody will be able to get that a distance. And if you have a look at the head on there, actually, because these are now quite different. So there is a big period, time difference between the two, and the purpose is different. So these are for throwing at people who are armoured, whether they wear body armour or they have a shield. Right? This is not. So that is about digging into flesh. So it's people who are not wearing armour or little armour, and it's also horses a lot. So different people in different parts of Europe use them. So the Irish used them an awful lot in the 14th and 15th century against horses, and 16th century actually, against horses. So they were famous for doing that. The Portuguese and Spanish, on the other hand, they use them on battlefields, and you see them a lot there in open warfare, whereas the Irish are fighting a bit more sort of guerrilla actions. But so they were widely used, different people, different periods, but interestingly, the head always remains pretty much like that.
It's incredible the effort that goes into crafting these weapons to reduce the amount of skill that you need, so that literally almost anyone can just walk onto a battlefield and take part. Even if they're not professionals, they can be proficient.
Absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Spanish and the Portuguese particularly had specialist troops for these, but they didn't have to have them. And if push comes to shove, you know, if your city is besieged, I can throw that off the top, you can throw it, your wife can throw it, my child can throw it. As long as you are throwing it a bit of a distance from the walls down there, it will do somebody some harm.
Should we find out? Shall I give it a go?
Absolutely. Well, actually, I think you need two. I can't just do one. It was the Irish way. They seem to carry them in pairs, 2s or 3s, but... Oh, nice.
Right in the knee. Took one in
Right,
the knee.
it certainly did.
I can't believe I actually hit him.
No,
actually
good
hit
shot.
at
Throw of the
target.
day.
Maybe not into the body, but presumably if we're on a battlefield, that's somewhere in his thigh, his leg. Even if he's surviving that,
Yeah.
he's not taking much active part now.
No, he's not. And I mean, I think that's exactly the point of this. Unskilled throwers, both you and I, and still you're able to cause a lot of damage.
Yeah, so the second time I've ever thrown one of these, I've taken out someone on the battlefield who's trying to attack my home. So an utter incompetent is now effective on the battlefield.
Yes, and the point of that is the fletchings. It allows you to pick it up and it doesn't tumble, it doesn't go around corners, it just goes straight.
And I mean, that's actually gone in at a fair distance as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I'm
really
having
in
trouble getting that out, but you know,
there.
that's
You can see.
pushed the dirt back to there.
Yeah.
So he's got a good inch or so of that in his thigh.
Yeah, and that's wood. You know, so it's a hell of a lot harder. It's quite a thing, isn't it? But that's why they have these flesh-piercing heads, actually, because the armour-piercing head, it makes a small hole. This makes a great big gaping wound, and it's about blood loss. You know, it really is. You're going to debilitate people with this, actually better than just poking a pencil-sized hole through them.
Having finally made my mark on Joe's legs with the javelin, my confidence using Tod's arsenal was growing ever stronger. But before we were to move on to the more recognisable medieval weaponry, I had to get my hands on a more peculiar looking battle implement.
I'm slightly drawn to these things that look like a cross between that fletched javelin and an arrow.
Well, they kind of are, really. So, plumbata, so a late Roman Empire invention. Got a lead weight here, steel shank on it. Mars was the god of war. So they were known as little barbers of Mars, basically. Presumably their kind of joke when they're hurling their way through the air at you. Carried them on the inside of their shields, 5 of them, and they're just very quick and very easy to deploy. You just pick them up, you grab them at the end, and you just throw them.
So you're not throwing them like darts?
Absolutely
pub
not
darts.
throwing them like darts. So you can throw them overhand, you can throw them underhand, either way. So throwing them underhand will really get them high and up and over. So basically behind, you know what Roman legionaries look like. They also like to fight each other a lot as well as other people. You can get them over those ranks, over those shield formations at the front, landing down the back. And the bottom line is, that goes into your leg. You're not pulling it out easily. You cannot continue. You can't fight with that dangling out of you. Even if it's not a mortal wound, it takes you out of the battle. One hit and you're gone. They were just fantastically useful. And they're so portable, so easy to throw. I mean, I'll give you a demonstration, really.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that way of throwing it, because if I picked this up blind, I would have thrown this like a dart.
No, I'll show you how it's done overhand, because for a throwing weapon, the rapidity that you can throw these things at is extraordinary. fast.
I mean, fast but accurate as well. That's
Yeah.
2 in him and a couple all around him. So again, if he's in a group of people, he's done for. Potentially a couple of other people are as well. That's a pretty devastating weapon.
And this is what, 15, 20 metres, right? So I can throw these about 60, 70. I've got a friend who can do 120 metres with them. You multiply that by hundreds of other guys throwing these things. I mean, just imagine being on the other end of that.
It's like a Roman arrow storm. We think of medieval arrow storms.
It is, but we need to go and have a look at that one that's in his chest
Yes,
particularly.
see what's that's done to our Joe. Well, that's incredible. So the second one that hit him somewhere up here has fallen out, but that would have been in his throat or in his face. But this one has properly lodged right in his chest.
Yeah. So that's from there. Now, also, did you notice, interestingly, the angle was there. It wasn't dead straight on because this is quite close. So it takes a little while to self-align, but you get that out at a great distance, 30 metres, something like that. They're coming in dead straight. Penetration will be better.
Yeah. But still, that's done some serious damage to this guy, hasn't it, Todd? That's gone in a fair distance. Presumably that's in his lung.
Yeah.
And you pull that out and you've got that barbed head on it as well. You're causing more damage. This guy's in serious trouble now.
Yeah, I mean, the Roman physicians used to work on the basis that if a wound to the torso was more than 2 inches deep, it was almost certainly fatal. Almost certainly fatal.
Sorry, Joe.
He smells anyway, so it doesn't. There we are. Right, definitely your go.
What the Plumbata lacked in size and intimidation, it made up for in speed, deadliness and versatility. Hurling the weapon directly at the target was one way of using Roman war darts. But what about other methods?
So here's my challenge, Matt. We were talking earlier about how to throw them. So first one up, you got one in your hand, throw it as if it was a pub dart. See what happens.
Which is what I would have done if I'd come to this blind. I would have assumed that was
Yeah.
the way to do it.
Yeah, so it's, little limited on distance, but go for an underhand now. Oh, so
Too much height, not
yeah,
enough
but
distance.
properly high though.
Yeah, and by the time it's coming down dead straight.
Yeah.
The fletchings have kicked in.
Yeah, totally. So go overhand, nice and long, back to Joe again. Oh, lovely. Yeah. Lovely.
Oh,
And again.
I'm getting close to him.
Yeah,
If he's
so-
moving towards me, I'll allow myself, if he's coming towards me, I've timed that perfectly.
But absolutely threatening him. But the point is, throwing it like a pub dart.
Does not work at all.
No, rubbish. So we're not quite sure, did they do it overhand, did they underhand, did they change? But what we do know is they did not play pub darts with it.
Yeah. But still, even at a different range, massively effective for someone who has no idea how to use this.
Yeah.
From a less well-known but extremely effective ranged weapon to a common feature of numerous period films and TV shows set in the Middle Ages, the axe has become synonymous with medieval battles and most notably, the Vikings. Its roots date all the way back to the early Stone Age when hunter-gatherers used primitive versions for all sorts of tasks. And the axe would become closely associated with Norse warriors in the early medieval period and remain at the core of weaponry throughout the Middle Ages.
My eyes are being drawn now to something I think we feel is maybe quite Hollywoody. We're used to seeing people running around with axes.
Yeah.
Is this a normal fighting axe?
It's not a fighting axe. So you can look, it's got a really quite unusual shape and the edge is coming down here. So it's not for working, it's got no practical purpose. You could fight with it, but actually this is what's called a Francisca, used by the Franks. So sort of 6th century, 7th century, something like that. But again, I can't think of any other culture through Europe that used throwing axes. It's really particular to them, and then it's basically died out.
So we should definitely not have that Hollywood vision of Vikings running around throwing axes at everybody.
No, the Vikings very much associated with fighting with axes. But, the big Dane axe, sort of smaller actual hand fighting axes, single hand fighting axes, but not, as far as I know, throwing axes. So this really was the Francisca, and then axe throwing really stopped. But again, there's the Hollywood thing. Can I just borrow it back? The Hollywood thing where it doesn't matter where the guy is, what distance away. He could be 100 yards or he could be here. But the axe will get thrown, it will beautifully move hand over hand, and it will end up in the middle of his forehead or his chest or something like that, edge on.
Preferably in slow motion.
Oh, totally. But the problem with that is that requires you to know exactly how hard you're throwing it, how fast he might be moving, how far away he is. All these calculations are really hard to do in the heat of battle. A good person will be better than a bad person. But the truth is, most of the time, this thing is going to end up handle on or not quite landing as you want it to.
Yeah, you've got kind of a small window of success. So I guess
Yeah.
if I'm a novice, I'm picking this up, this is not going to be very much use for me. Maybe if I'm skillful, but in the heat of a battlefield, when I'm running around, you're running around, everything's moving, I can't tell you to stand still while I pace out a distance at which I'm comfortable throwing this at you.
No, but you don't know, if I throw that at you, how that's going to land. So you do what every other person on the planet does, is you put your head behind your shield. You've taken your eye off the ball. And at the point that you lift your shield up, you're exposing your groin downwards. Great, lovely, somebody will poke you with something. The other thing is, you're not watching what's happening on the other side. And it's that thing. This thing comes hurling at you, whether it lands this way or this way or this way, you don't want it to land any which way.
No.
You duck. So that's really what it is. It's a distraction tool.
So if we're boxing, that's almost like the jab. That's
while
getting my range,
something else comes in somewhere
distracting you
else.
while something else is going to come in and get you from somewhere else. That's not meant to do the damage. That's meant to distract you while something else does.
Great if it does, but it's not. I suppose that's an excellent analogy. Great if it does, but it's not its primary function. Because, you know, throwing this in the heat of battle, it's going to hit you somewhere. It's heavy. It's going to hurt. But actually, the only bit that's really going to cause you damage is this edge. And the chance of that landing true is pretty slim.
The other thing that caught my eye on the table next to that, which seems to compensate maybe for the shortcomings we've talked about,
I think
in that
you're
is,
exactly right.
is this
Crazy
terrifying
thing.
spiked item of doom. What on earth is this?
Well, that is not the imaginings of a psychotic 14-year-old boy in his sketchbook. It really is a real weapon. It's a hurlbat. So very Germanic, Bohemian, sort of 15th, 16th century, that kind of era. I believe that it was associated with the Hussites, so effectively a peasant rebellion in essence. And it's, you know, as you can see, it's a very simple to make tool. Any blacksmith's forge could do it. And that's the point. You didn't have rich city resources. You had peasants in villages. And they converted their flails, they converted their farm trucks, and they made stuff like that. I'm not certain that's true, but it absolutely fits with what that is. It's not going to do vast amounts of damage because it's not really heavy like a pole weapon is with all of your body weight behind it. But it is going to make you duck.
But a similar principle to some of the pole weapons that we see, in that this has so many ways of hurting you. You know, that axe has the very small bit that's really going to do serious damage. This has that, but then it has, if this is spinning at you, spike, 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 there's a spike on the end as well. There's almost no way this isn't going to hurt.
I think that's exactly it. Pretty much however it lands, something unpleasant will happen.
Seems like the perfect weapon for an untrained idiot.
I think so. Well, let's go find Joe and see what we can
See
do.
what Joe makes of these. Right, you're going to have a go first with yours?
Yep. Here we are. Oh, okay, but that landed edge on. I mean, the jelly pushed it out, but he's got a cut now on his shoulder, so okay, it did the job.
And even if not, even if the stick had hit him, he's recoiling from that. He's been hit by something.
But a lucky shot, I think, in essence. Right.
See how lucky I can be. Oh, not very good shot.
No, his knee's never going to be the same. But again, though, okay, you missed the man, but the front point of the axe was straight in.
Something stuck in him.
Yeah. Nice. So that was the point of the end. It bounced out again, but it's gel for you.
But if Joe was real, that might well have stuck in him.
Well, so that was there. So that's what struck, which is brilliant. Before, it was that part. So, you know, that's the point, is try and throw it a little bit harder maybe, because then it will spin differently.
But and I guess the point is you've just got so many options. You don't have to be proficient. Any bit of that will do something.
Yes. I didn't see again, but I think it might have been the back spike. Oh no, here again. So it was the front one again. Fantastic.
And I guess that just drives home from any distance. That's got a great chance of doing something.
Another blow for Joe with the hurlbat, and the injuries were starting to take their toll. Time to assess the damage.
I mean, he's got a big gash on his shoulder there. What's that, right by his collarbone?
Yeah, so that was the Francisca that went in, and it sort of about that. So, you know, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
But that'll take your left arm out of action because it'll take the collarbone out, if not further damage.
So even the least effective weapon that we've got here, or the least able for an idiot to use, has done some serious damage.
It was. I would stress that was a little bit of a lucky shot in the sense of it could have hit there and then it would have just been a clubbing injury. But you, on the other hand, there is a little wound here and then another one here. Can I just borrow the help back? I think what happened is that touch there, and as it's spinning, and that's gone in there like that.
So that's right in his chest in 2 spots.
Yeah.
And it's presumably going to be painful, even if it's not doing too much damage.
Well, I think what you've got here anyway is quite a small point and quite a lot of energy, so that's going to be broken ribs. It might not go that deep, but it is going to be broken ribs. And again, hard to fight with that. So yeah.
So
held back.
two relatively untrained people with a couple of weapons, and
Yeah.
this guy's done.
Yeah. But again, don't forget the primary use, make him focus on something else. Make him duck, make him hold his shield up. They're going to do that because they're going to know what that does.
Yeah, because you don't want that and that.
You don't want that and that. Job done.
Having tested a whole range of unorthodox axes and darts that I knew very little about, I wanted to return to a weapon that was a little bit more familiar.
Well, that was really good fun.
Yeah,
But
interesting. Isn't it?
I guess we've been ignoring the elephant in the room, particularly for someone like me. I'm fascinated by the Wars of the Roses, the 100 Years' War, with which I most associate the English longbow. We've got a couple of bows, we've got some arrows. Let's get stuck into those.
So we've got to string them first, but this is a lighter one. It's about 40 pound in draw weight. Now, it's one that, you know, I can just easily shoot for something like this. It's one that I'm set to you to be easily able to shoot as well. The reason I'm saying that is this is a bit more real. It's about 130 pound longbow. Now that's all well and good and it's brilliant for taking to war, but you've got to train with it. And that's why, you know, under the English system, we used to own a bow and arrows from the age of 7 and we had to shoot with them every Sabbath day. And the reason for that is it's hard.
And when we say 130 pound bow, what do we mean? What does the 130 pounds mean?
It means that it is the force taken to draw the string back, not obviously the weight of the bow itself. You know, in that very jokey way, it's probably about 2 pounds. But draw that one, 40 pound one back to your ear. Don't let go of the string, just pull it back and let it back down. So you can do that relatively easily.
And that is much, much harder to get any
So
kind of
you're
distance
about
on.
that kind of far short. More than I'd expect you to do, actually, so well done. But what it means is that any efficiency in the making of that bow is just wasted because you're just not able to deliver the potential that that thing's got. And that's the problem with longbows. That really is the problem with longbows. You have to be trained from a young age for the high poundage, heavy bow shooting, the great distance shooting. If you're not, it just doesn't work out as a weapon of war. Not really, not for distance.
So this would be a really specialist tool that would be wasted on me.
Absolutely wasted on you. There are men who can shoot it. You know, there certainly are now and there certainly were then. More supply in England because we had the laws. But they still could on the continent, but not enough for them to field armies. And that's why we were able to field regularly armies full of archers and they were not. So they had to rely on the crossbow. But first off, I think we'll shoot these, or shoot this one, and then we'll move on to the crossbow. We'll talk a little bit about the differences between the two.
Yeah, wonderful. Right, is there a right and a wrong way to do this, or shall I just give it a go?
Let's give it a go. I mean, there definitely is, but if you shot a bit before, you'll be all right.
I've worried his friend. Worried the same friend. And again, if we're firing into a group of people, even my incompetence is doing some
Oh, it is
damage
to his
in there.
neighbours, yeah, for sure. But what it doesn't change is the heavy bow weights.
Okay, so this is something I could pick up from nothing and be reasonably okay at, but I'm never going to pull a much bigger bow than this.
You're never going to pull the bows of war. And there's nothing that you can do about it. And it's not a case of competence or incompetence, you just haven't done the training. It's as simple as that.
So it really is like an elite athlete sport, being a proper war bowman.
Yeah, I think it probably was. And I mean, there must have been vast pride about it, you know, to be the best shot in the village or the best shot in the town. Must have meant so much, because it doesn't matter on your social standing whether you're high or low. The point is, that day you could be, you know, virtually peasant, and you're standing on the shooting line, and now you are the best man.
And you could take out a knight or a king.
Yeah,
even
and that
with
was
your
very
low
much
status.
the English way, you know, because we didn't worry about the chivalric laws. If he's a target, he's a target. You know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's my daughter's football goal, that is.
Sorry, Todd's daughter. Well, I didn't manage to hit Joe specifically, unfortunately, much to my disappointment with this. And I guess the other thing on the table that I'm looking at that fits in here is the English in the medieval period were really proud of their bows. We tend to associate crossbows with being a more continental version and with being easier to use, much more of a leveller than a longbow. Is that fair?
Yeah, so the English did use crossbows as well. So we used them in sieges, particularly in naval warfare. So don't think that we only had longbows. But as we said earlier, we had the laws in England about training from a very young age to shoot the very powerful bows. They didn't have that on the continent. So if they wanted to shoot power, they couldn't use the longbow. They couldn't deliver lots of men to do it, but they could use crossbows. So they did. But you go to countries like Italy, where they're really famous for producing crossbow mercenaries, and those guys are paid 3 or 4 times the price that an English archer was paid, and an English archer was paid quite well. So the thing is, if they're really easy to use, why are the guys paid so much to do it? Because that doesn't make sense, because otherwise everybody would be doing it. But then the other side of that whole thing is they absolutely are easier to use. So I could get you to shoot Joe reliably in 30 minutes from here, so, which you couldn't do with a longbow because you simply wouldn't be able to draw the power. So there's a conflict of information there that I've never been able to get to the bottom of.
Yeah, which suggests there's kind of a wide range with this. You can pick it up and fire it straight away, but also you can become an elite fighting force based around these that commands high wages.
It does, and I think, to be fair, they were better armoured, their equipment was expensive, they were probably very good fighters in other ways, because of course archers are not just about missile weapons. When you've shot your bolt, you take your weapons out and you go into the fight with your swords, your maces, your clubs, your whatever.
Yeah, so you may be hiring more than just a crossbowman.
You would be. But let's take that off your hands and I'll show you how we shoot these. This is a goat's foot bow. And a goat's foot bow is because the lever used to span it is shaped, as you can tell, just like a goat's foot. But the point is that this bow here is about 450 pounds in draw weight. You cannot pull the string back. So you need a device to do it. You can do it with hooks and belts and pulleys and things like that on slightly lighter bows, or if you're very strong, this one wasn't so much the English way. But then also you can use windlasses. This is not a windlass bow, but it's where you have a whole gear system of pulleys and ropes on it for shooting the very powerful bows. And there's a couple of other systems, but this one works really well, but it's not amazingly powerful. But basically you've got the lever here, you pop it onto the string there, and you've got these 2 lugs. You just hook the lever over the lugs. So we're ready to go now. That just sits in the joint between your leg and your torso. You come back until you get a nice click and you spanned. So actually, that was several times the power of the bow that you were shooting earlier, that you tried to pull earlier. So you take your bolt, you put the butt of it against the string, raise it, hold it in tight to your shoulder. Shoot.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to part of the point we're talking about. I make these things, I own them, but actually I probably shoot 2 bolts a month, maybe, and that's what I can do. They really are, in many respects, a great leveller, but
We're going to find out how much of a leveller they might be.
Whilst the crossbow may have been a leveller when shooting, cranking the weapon was another story. Once I finally had it cocked, my sights were set on my arch nemesis.
Got him. I finally hit Joe with something.
so there you go. And that bow is equivalent to about a 100-pound longbow, something like that, because the poundages are different on crossbows and longbows. But a big windlass bow is as good as the biggest longbows that anybody can shoot. And you could do that. If you can do that, you can do a windlass bow.
So I could never fire a 100-pound warbow, but I can fire this, which
Yes.
is pretty much the equivalent. And,
Yes.
and there's the leveller.
Finally, a direct hit that landed flush on Joe. But just how much damage were these crossbow bolts capable of inflicting?
Are we like 4 inches in?
Yeah, thereabouts, yeah.
And fairly consistently, even mine is almost the same distance in as yours.
Yeah, and that was literally your first shot. They're amazing things.
It's terrifying. And, just look at the amount of damage that those have done. The way they've gone in that distance and split all of that.
We can do more though. So if you look at the points on this, they're just simple round points. They're what are known these days as field points. Easy to go into targets, easy to come out. But of course, easy to come out was not the medieval way. This is the medieval way.
And that just looks way more fearsome. What is that about? What is that trying to do?
Well, very simply, you've got 2 things going on. The first one is the obvious one, which is you end up with 2 barbs that make it very difficult to draw it out of the wound. Right, well, if it can't get it out of the wound, you can't fight with that in you. You know, you can fight with a little pen-sized hole in you, but you can't fight with that dangling out of you. But the other thing that it does is if you imagine those bolts that we had earlier, it makes a hole in you, right? But it's sealed the hole it's made, and that restricts the amount of blood loss there is. This one cuts a hole that is wider than the shaft, and that means that you get a lot more blood loss that will leak past the shaft. So simplistically, this will kill you faster than the one that we were shooting before will kill you.
And it's more debilitating if you're losing blood all over the place.
Yeah.
You're out
Yep.
of action much quicker. The other thing I'm noticing is we've not got feathers here. We've
No.
got wooden flights. What's going on there?
So the wooden flights, again, it's one of these things that we're not entirely certain of. But what I can tell you is that when you fletch an arrow and you put it into storage, if I've had arrows for 10 years, just as part of my kit, they go really moth-eaten and doggy. There's a mite, there's a bacteria, there's something that kills them, just eats them. There are wooden fletched crossbow bolts in museums and castles in Europe now, because it was more of a European thing, which are still as shootable now, 500 or 600 years later, as they were the day they were put in storage. And I think that that's what the wood is about. You do it once, you never have to do it again. Now, you can't do it on arrows because of the way it passes past your hand and the bow. If they could, they would have done, because it's perfect for storage. But there's something else fascinating about these. What can you tell me about the shape on them? Do you notice anything?
I mean, they're curved.
Yeah, they're absolutely they're
bowed
curved,
a little bit there.
like a plane wing. And this was the way they made them. So they literally have a differential lift one side on the other. It causes that spin that you want to keep the projectile going straight. Very deliberate, very clever, and they knew it worked, but there's no way that they knew how, because this was even before Leonardo da Vinci was doing his stuff on flight. Nobody had any idea why this was working, but it's what they did.
But it worked, so you carry on doing
Yeah,
it.
so
It's
really
like putting the
clever.
laces on an American football to get the spin,
Yeah.
to keep it going where you want it to go. This is going to be travelling through the air like that.
Yes.
Because of the way they've shaped those.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And they did it because it worked, but unwittingly. They
Yeah.
couldn't have known why it worked.
So do we think this is going to do more damage to Joe than the other arrows did?
It should do, yeah. I mean, the gel is quite clingy, and this is a bigger surface area, so actually it might not go as deep. But you know what? Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Oh, let's go look at that.
Let's see what that's done to it. Oh wow, that really has gone right in some distance as well.
Oh, but you should see it from the side here, actually. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And yeah, you can see that wide channel where it's gone through as well.
Yeah.
And it's been widening the wound as it's gone.
Yeah.
And what, we a good 4 or 5 inches in there?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we mustn't forget that ballistic gel is not a true analogue for flesh. And the thing is, through flesh, especially here where there's nothing substantial, that bolt would have gone straight through. And I've shot these from more powerful bows at this stuff before. And actually what happens is the wooden flights end up cutting their way through as well. So they become part of the wound channel. And it's not just the head, it's the flights that follow.
Yeah, so they're winding the wound even. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Should we see if we can pull it out?
Yeah, go.
Oh, and that has sucked in all around it. But yeah, so we've gone in like all of that length, and look at that flaring there that's opened the wound up.
Absolutely. And again, under the Roman surgeon's rules, the guy's a dead man. But the thing is as well, even if we doubled or quadrupled that distance, you'd still be threatening him directly. You know, you're a good enough shot to threaten him, but also let's say the 2 guys on his sides, because nobody goes to war alone. All of you are under threat from you, a complete novice, at really quite a considerable distance, you know, maybe 80 metres, and they're still going to be worried.
It's just terrifying how easy it is to do that much damage.
It is. But we do have something more terrifying yet to show you, another development, which is fire arrows.
With accounts dating back to the Assyrian siege of Lachish in 701 BC and all the way through to the late medieval period, flaming arrows have long been used on the battlefield. Terrifying as the looming fire arrow storm may look in the films, however, I wanted to find out just how practical they were and how often they were really used in warfare.
So fire arrows, Todd, we're thinking bows, big lump of fire on the end, glorious slow motion. Have the films got that
always.
wrong as well?
Well, they're right about the fire. There is fire involved, but not the way they do it, and not the way most people think it was done. So, firstly, they were expensive, they were complicated, they were difficult to make, so you don't waste them in an open battlefield. They're great for film because it allows you to see an arrow, which is a really hard thing to see on a film. You can see it easily, and especially if there's any archery at night, if there weren't fire arrows in a film, you'd just have a black sky and everybody going, what's going on? You know, it doesn't work. So that's why Hollywood uses them a lot. But they were used in naval warfare, and they were used on sieges, attacking the towns and the cities, not coming out of the towns and cities. So that bit's all correct. But if you just put an oily rag or something like that on the end of an arrow, it goes out when you shoot it. And they knew that. So they had some kind of ways of doing it earlier, and that was fine, and possibly even the Romans did it. But then by the sort of late 14th, 15th century, they started to use oxidizers. So basically the same stuff that is in gunpowder. And that really allows you to propagate a fierce flame that doesn't go out when you shoot it, and is really difficult for you to put out as a defender when it lands on the ground. And that's really what the revolution was in fire arrows. Lasted for a while, all the way into the mid-17th century, English Civil War, and then seemed to have disappeared.
So we're talking rather than firing something flaming, you're talking about using its motion through the air and the air that's being drawn past it to help ignite it and make it burst into flames more?
No, there were some slightly mythical ones where apparently if you made them, they were fine, and when you shot them, they burst into fire in the air. I'm not quite sure about the truth of that. No, these ones, I'll show you, it's a simple thing in a way. The concept is great, that what you've got, if you put fuel on the outside of a rag or something like that, the wind rushing past it will just blow it out. So that's it. If you put fire inside a tube to protect it from the wind, it goes out because it's now smothered. You put the oxidizer in it, and suddenly it can burn inside the tube. So it doesn't matter if the air is rushing past it or not rushing past it. They even burn underwater, these things.
Wow, so this is maybe a little bit more like a grenade?
Again, no, sorry, Matt, because a grenade explodes. And they had grenades, both incendiary ones that broke apart and had a liquid that just oozed everywhere and caught light, and ones that actually exploded as we would understand a grenade to be. These are not those. So what we have here is a rosin jacket on the outside. So rosin is just a pine resin, and you have you can do one with me actually. We'll shoot a couple. We have a fuse peg. That's put in during manufacture. And you pull that out, just twist and pull out. And you've now exposed the inside of your charge. Have a little pokey stick, that's its technical term, it's the same in Latin. So you now poke the fuse inside the charge there. Do you want to do that one?
I'll have a go at one. The pokier stick is.
Yeah.
Right, let's see if I can get this in. And we're just poking this into the hole so it goes somewhere into the middle of the fire arrow.
That's it.
That
And
good?
it feels like it doesn't want to come out. The reason you put it in the rosin jacket is it keeps the moisture out, because all the oxidizers like to absorb water from the atmosphere. And so if you just left it in a linen bag, for instance, it would end up just not working properly. So that's now ready to go. So it's just plugged onto the end of a crossbow bolt. So that's now ready to shoot. So we're going to light up a piece of match cord, and then we have to go through the spanning process again on the bow. So match cord is just, again, it's what they use for lighting cannons and early matchlocks. So it's a piece of rope which has been impregnated with an oxidizer. This is obviously my tinderbox, by the way. So you can see you've got a glow there, and that won't go out. It'll just stay smouldering like that. Won't burst into flame, won't go out, just does that. So now, because of the weight of the charge on the end, it's actually going to overbalance from the bow. So I've just got to hold that in place and then put my thumb on top of it.
And
It's not
presumably that
painful.
increases the skill that requires from you, though, in terms of letting go of that at the right time.
No,
Ah.
you let it shoot from under your thumb. No, if you let go, then it would all go horribly wrong. Right, we ready to rock and roll?
Let's go, let's see what it does.
So, just got a little bit of a delay here. Ugh, arse wipes. Now
We're going to see what that's done to Joe.
We have to go and have a look at that.
Well, that's lodged right in. Smoke, it was burning inside. And it's just catching more and more fire.
So that's going to keep going now, because that's not your average fire. But have you noticed the smoke?
Yeah.
So this is all right. I haven't put anything particularly nasty in it. But you look at the recipes. Oh God, he's beginning to ooze.
Oh dear, poor Joe.
You look at the recipes and they're full of things like camphor and arsenic and linseed as well, which is really rank basically when it burns. And you have to ask yourselves, was the use of these chemicals deliberate? Deliberate to make fumes? And you know, I've done some work on it with films and things like that, and it certainly produces an awful lot of very noxious stuff. Introduce things like arsenic into it, it'd be horrendous.
So we're bordering on chemical warfare at this point. As well as the pain of that, the shock and the fear and the smoke and the smell,
Yeah.
you could add chemical warfare to that.
Well, they certainly did chemical warfare in other ways. So they had smoke charges to drive people out of buildings. So if you like, that's kind of CS gas in modern parlance. They certainly had that. I don't know about loading on arrows. They certainly had pots of lime, so caustic powder that would burn people's eyes and lungs and noses out. And they certainly threw those around. So they were familiar with chemical warfare, even if they didn't have the name of it.
And that's still burning away
It's still burning.
in Joe's shoulder.
Yeah. So Matt, we saw what that relatively lightweight crossbow did. Now the thing is, it'd be really nice to see what a full weight longbow would do, but I am not the man to shoot that. But I have this thing here, which is, I call it the longbow simulator. Others may call it a modern crossbow. But what is really particular about this is it shoots medieval weight arrows, medieval size arrows at the same speed as my mate Joe's 160-pound longbow. So basically this is an English archer from 1450 or something like that. It's just shaped like a crossbow.
It looks really intimidating.
It is a spooky thing.
And let's see what it can do with a fire arrow.
Yeah.
Todd and I were determined to end this video with a bang. And what better way to do it than to replicate the force and power of an English longbowman at the Battle of Agincourt.
Right, let's light this one up and give Joe a good send-off.
Oh dear.
Oh no, that's gone right in his chest. All of that fire bit is inside him as well.
Oh
isn't it?
my goodness.
Oh no, he's already leaking black stuff.
All right.
The point of the arrow is out the back
Yeah.
as well. That's gone right the way through him.
That is about as nasty as death could be.
Yeah, he's not coming back from this.
Yeah. And I think what that also shows is it's an awful lot more than an oily rag on a stick.
Yeah. There's science in there.
Oh, stand back a bit, that's sounding a bit ugly.
If you can get around the back, the arrow head is pointing out his back.
Oh, actually Matt as well. Look at the burn.
Oh wow. You just see that's just burning
That's
inside, isn't it?
that's just about to pop
boiling
through.
and bubbling. This thing just behind
Oh, and
there
it's leaking.
boiling.
That is vile. So let's have a look.
The inside of Joe.
Yeah.
And you can see right the way through him. You can see right, if you look down, you can see right through him.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Well, that's been absolutely incredible. I feel like I've learned a lot about the way these medieval weapons work. About some of them you can pick up and use with a degree of competence. Some of them you can get much, much better at. And when we look at what we've done to Joe with a low level of training, I hate to think what professionals might have been able to do to him in the medieval period and various other times with those various weapons. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope you have too. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to Tod's YouTube channel, where you can find a whole video all about fire arrows, and you can indulge yourself in a little bit more of that, as well as lots of other fantastic stuff. Also subscribe to History Hits channel for plenty more content like this.
John, good morning.
Good morning.
What an arsenal of pirate weapons you have here. Tell me what's on the table.
Right, well, we've got blunderbusses. The earliest pistols would have been left over from the Civil War. That's where all your pirates came from. These are Queen
These are
Anne style
beautiful.
pistols.
Yeah.
Most pistols come in pairs, of course.
Yes.
But the pirates, you know, they stole most of them, didn't they? So they didn't always get the pair.
And you can imagine these sort of hoisted on a
Yes,
bandolier or,
yes,
or in the
yes,
tube.
in the belt.
Yeah.
This one is a blunderbuss pistol.
Wow.
There we are.
Oh my goodness
By
me.
Jova, great maker. And it's flared, brass barrel, good for the naval. The point is that you left them loaded all the time.
Yeah.
You kept them loaded because you never knew quite when you might need it. So
Very, very
yeah.
nice sort of lighter shotgun in a way.
It is. That's it. They were used with probably buckham ball, actually.
Right,
You have a single
okay.
ball and a buckshot on top. I'll show you the shot. And of course, this is the classic sea service.
Yes.
The sea service came in at about the 1720s.
Yeah,
So
right around
towards-
that period, yeah.
Yeah, so towards the end of the golden age, really.
Yeah.
This, see, complete with belt hook, so you could stick it on your belt.
Right. Slightly more weighty, still beautiful though. And lovely decoration on all these weapons.
This
There's
is a
lot of
military
care.
style, so this is much more utilitarian. And of course, the most important thing, you've only got one shot, so
There you
that's
go.
your second shot. There would be a rack of these below, and the whistle would go up, you know, if once it got to close combat, and they'd all grab a pistol and to defend the ship.
And it's slightly heavier. You know, I guess they were kind of mass producing these to some extent.
The Board of Ordnance, you can see the Board of Ordnance marks on there.
Oh yeah.
They were all assembled in the Tower of London, so that's
Yeah.
why they're called Tower pistols.
Okay.
And the trade were making them for the Tower, and they were also making them for private purchase. That is a Tower, that is a genuine Board of Ordnance adopted pistol, but they were making just as many for the trade, so the privateers had them.
And of course, a lot of those privateers would then switch allegiances
Yes.
and go on their own.
If they plundered a ship and thought, we've we've made it big, they might think, why bother going back to Blighty when we can live a life of luxury?
A life of luxury was perhaps the thinking behind a certain Captain William Kidd's decision to turn from privateer and pirate hunter to one of the most wanted criminals of the late 17th century. For Kidd, the temptations of plunder were too great to ignore. The Scotsman captured numerous ships, including a vessel called the Quader, which had on board a cargo worth £70,000 and one of the biggest hauls in the history of piracy. A manhunt ensued, and Kidd supposedly buried his treasure on an island off the coast of New York. He returned to Boston hoping for mercy. All he found was chains and eventually a noose.
And in terms of the weaponry, you know, a lot of these pirates, they have been privateers or they've been in the wars. They are used to using. It's not like the pirates had their own individual weapons. They're using the same stuff and they're used to using it and they're experts in it. So why change? How about we see how much damage a sea service pistol can do on the range?
See what you can do with it.
Yeah, let's go.
That's your target, Luke.
Okay, not too far away, but...
well, that's about the maximum range you could expect to hit a man.
I'll cock it.
I'll sit back a little.
And you said maybe aim just a little bit below the target.
The target is his head, really, and you want to shoot at his belly. Well, you hit it. Well done.
I can't see from here.
I think you're a bit low.
It was a fair kickback. You need to have a pretty strong arm to use these.
Yeah.
Let's inspect the target, John.
Yeah, by all means.
Oh, I can see it now.
Yeah.
Far too far to the left and a little bit low.
You've hit him in the shoulder, haven't you? So there's your mark. And look what it's done behind. It's blown a hole clean through this 3/4 ply and gone into the ground over there.
Oh, wow. So you can see the exit wound, if you like. You know, it's a fairly clean entrance, but yeah, it really has.
No, I think it's lodged in the target. It should have gone clean through.
I mean, that would be bad news for whoever was on the receiving end.
Yeah. Cock it back to full cock, please.
Yep.
And give it your best shot. Bit lower, I think.
Whoa! Wow, that was definitely more of a kickback.
Good, good. Well, you hit very high that time.
Oh gosh, I've gone the opposite way. Gosh, that went way too high.
One shot too low and one too high. Let's see if I could split the difference.
You tell me what you think.
That looks a bit better, yeah. Straight through the heart.
There we go.
Bullseye.
Bullseye. Split the difference, John.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You've actually hit the spot.
That's insane. I can see it right now. Can we inspect that?
Yeah. Need to tread out any burning embers. Well done.
Wow, look at that. Right in the middle of the two, basically.
Absolutely spot on.
It shows you if you aim correctly, you could be quite accurate.
Well, you hadn't had any practice, had you?
Yeah.
You know, you hadn't had time to practice. First practice, second practice, third you bang on.
And can we see the
look
round the back?
Yeah. Go on. Look at that, smashed a big hole in the ply.
Oh wow, that's got straight through.
And there, look, there's the other one.
Really,
I believe that ball
might be lodged in there.
is lodged in there.
Oh wow, look at this.
That one has come out, I think.
Yeah.
But this one, I think, is in there.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if we can get that ball out.
Put your hand underneath, Luke.
Yeah. Oh my goodness me, look at that.
Flattened it.
And is that the entire ball, or is
Yes,
that?
it's the whole ball being flattened to twice it's twice the caliber of the gun now, because it's flattened out, and that's what it would do on your body, and that would tumble through your body.
That's devastating.
Yeah.
Straight through the heart.
John, this is what I've
Onto the
come to
blunderbuss.
see. Yeah, this is what I've been excited about. You've got 2 blunderbusses here.
Yes.
Tell me the difference between the both.
Well, the top one is a naval musketoon. The Navy called a long-barreled blunderbuss, and the point is that longer range you'd use a musketoon, and the difference is, just like your cannons fired single shot and your musket fired single shot, the musketoon fired canister.
It's like an early 18th century shotgun.
It is
Gosh, it's a pretty.
formidable.
It's pretty formidable. Again, I think in my ideal sort of pirate arsenal, I think I'd be carrying one of these. What's the first stage in the process?
Powder. Now I've made up some charges, so you pour the powder, and the extra bit, because it's 8 bore, is actually that much more, which is actually a quarter more.
It's putting even more powder than the brown Bess.
Yeah, even more powder than the brown Bess.
And a shorter barrel. It's gonna make a bang.
Correct. And because we're putting that in as a wad, so we ram that down. I'm now going to just pour these in. So here we are. 16 balls, in they go. I'm going to put a bit of cardboard on top.
And give that a ram down as well.
That doesn't need ramming quite the same. It just needs to be sat down gently on top of the charge to hold it in there, so that you can carry that around. You can turn it upside down, it won't fall out. Only remains for us to prime it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, shooting from here would be slightly wishful thinking with the spread.
Yes,
I'm
correct.
assuming he's going to come out of this. But let's bring our protective gear.
Yep.
And let's head a bit closer.
Absolutely.
To the
I need
target.
that. You can grab
I'll
that.
carry that. Let's go.
Make sure I've got my priming flask.
So roughly 20 yards again, John?
Yeah, I think here will do very nicely. So we're at half cock. I'm now going to prime it. There we are. I'm primed. You're at half cock. Let me put my ear defenders on.
Very important. I think this is going to make quite a bang.
Oh yes. If you like to mount that to your shoulder, you want to be able to see flush along that rib, be able to see over the top of my finger, hold it good and tight, cock it back to full cock. Good. I'm going to step back.
Okay.
Fire at will.
Oh!
Yep.
Oh, my shoulder. That was powerful. I can see them on the target.
Oh, they've peppered it. You've peppered it.
Let's have a look at it.
Yeah.
But my word, was that a kick. I can see all the little bullet holes here.
There should be 16 holes in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, 15, 16. All 16 balls accounted for.
And we hit the knee with the musket. We've hit the straight bang in the chest with the flintlock pistol.
And now you're taking his head out. And the bloke over here that's standing next to him, you're taking his head off as well.
And that's something we really need to mention. That I mean, these are gonna, you know, even if 5 go into one person, so many people are going to get affected.
Yeah.
And if one of these gets you in the neck, it's going to cause a lot of damage.
Correct.
Easy to reload and packing a deadly punch, the blunderbuss was an ideal firearm for clearing the decks of enemy ships. But could you rely on it to accurately take out specific targets? Introducing Joe, the captain of our enemy vessel.
Okay, John, we're going from the hip for this one.
Right, I'm priming you. That is now primed, half cock. Let's just have a. That's too high. I would say that's too high. I would say that's about right. So when you're ready, cock it.
We're now cocked.
Tiny bit. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Give it. Go for it.
Whoa! I'll tell you what, John, that marine is no longer.
I think that hurt.
Yeah, and do you know what? The blunderbuss, it almost flew out my hands.
Oh yeah, there's equal and opposite forces.
Absolutely. Well, let's go see.
Let's go and see
what we've done to
how Joe.
Poor old Joe.
Yeah.
So we have not only knocked the board back, we have completely ripped apart Joe's skull here. I want to pick this up. Whoa, look at that. That's shredded it to pieces.
Yeah.
And it has a kind of like a shotgun. It's more of a shredding rather than a complete.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is truly devastating. Joe is well and truly no longer. He's certainly not defending the cargo that we're after anymore.
No, I'm afraid there's no brain matter left for him to do any thinking.
The damage that these 18th century handheld firearms could do during a boarding action was clear to see. But in the Golden Age, it wasn't just portable weapons that were in play when fighting raged on deck. Cannons of all sizes remained a deadly threat to those attacking and defending their ships.
This really is a weapon that we associate with the Golden Age. It's
Absolutely.
The swivel gun.
Precisely. Every frigate, light frigate, would have had at least 2 of these, one on each bow, but several more, sometimes up on the, usually on the poop deck at the aft of the ship, possibly on the prow as well. And the point of them was that if you had boarders coming across, coming in boats, then you could swing it round and shoot them in the water on the boats, or you can swing and shoot at the boat, or you know, that's the whole point. Or you could shoot at someone up in the rigging.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so.
Even if you're being chased by another, you know, your cannons might not be in place to fire them side on. You might be able to fire backwards.
They're very restricted view.
Yeah.
Whereas this can sweep the whole deck, sweep across your own deck. If you're being overrun by salt, then these were shot with a solid ball, like a normal cannon. Not very effective. You might as well use a big cannon. The only thing is that, you know, you can point this in any direction. But this was used to fire canister, like we were showing, well, as I had on the table. This is going to fire a canister of shot, and I have the canister here. See, already made up.
Yeah, you were showing me earlier.
And that's the powder charge in the bottom there.
Yeah.
Filled with musket balls. I know these is very light, this one. As it's that shot. Simply put it in the gun. Obviously, if we're loading for real, we would have, for the first time, if it had fired, you'd have to wet sponge it.
Yeah.
But we don't need to do that because we haven't fired it yet. We push that in, push it down with the rammer. And then I have to puncture the cartridge. I'm happy with that, that's punctured it. And then we use some priming powder. going to use my flask here, but they would have used this horn. This horn has got 2 quarts of powder.
Yeah.
We want fine powder for the touch hole. Put a few grains down the touch hole, and that's your mark, just like that bit, and the flame will jump down the touch hole.
Fire away.
So each of those, that shows you the spread
Yeah.
of all those musket balls.
Wow, I could just imagine if we had actually loaded that with some proper balls, that would have gone flying.
Oh, absolutely.
And spreading a
and
huge distance.
Fire, fire! We've set fire to your field.
As if to perfectly illustrate the range of the weapon and the devastation the swivel gun could cause, we had inadvertently set fire to some of the grass up on the hill downrange. Luckily, I had a modern fire extinguisher, a luxury not yet accessible to the crews of the Golden Age.
Yeah, I mean, you can set things alight with this, certainly. And what always surprises me is for a cannon, it doesn't look too big, but it really does pack way bigger punch than you think.
Yeah, indeed, they did fire incendiary for setting, but mostly below deck. But that wasn't that. That was to show you the effect of buckshot,
Yeah.
or canister shot. So yes, very effective.
And what we've really seen today is there are so many different weapons of that age that pirates could use, but also had to face.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, doesn't it, the risk that they were taking every time they approached a ship, that they had all these things that we've looked at to worry about, but they also had them themselves. They certainly weren't just boarding with cutlasses. That's a myth.
No, that was the last. That's the last thing.
Last thing. John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for bringing all these weapons out and testing them.
You're very welcome.
Joe might not thank you, but I certainly will.
It's good having you.
Okay, it's the fowling piece next, the provincial's weapon.
Okay, there's the fowler on half cock.
A slightly smaller hole.
Of course, smaller ball.
Smaller ball, yeah.
Went right through.
Came out there and it produced some nasty splinters like this one here. So if you're within a metre or two, these could be as deadly as the bullet.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can imagine that musket ball going straight through the room, spraying splinters as it goes. Terrifying.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of look back on this period 250 years ago and think it's all somehow a little bit primitive or romantic, but these are killing weapons.
Yeah, certainly.
And we have to remember, these are not antique weapons. Then, they are the latest technology these folks were using, both for hunting, but in particular for the combat on April 19th. So they are using the latest technology available to them.
You just think about the fact that here we are shooting at, house sections and wood, but there were human beings that were killed that day and really badly wounded by these weapons.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, guys. You can read those sources, you can look at those images, but when you're on the range, you're hearing it, you're feeling it, it's a very different experience. After getting to grips with the weapons of the Middle Ages, I'm now moving through the centuries to the gunpowder age. My guide is the Armoury's firearms expert, Jonathan Ferguson. Well, I've just been shooting some bows and arrows, so this feels like the next big revolution of firepower.
It's quite a leap forward. Once you've got the industry in place to produce something like this, and it's no mean feat to do that, you've solved the training problem. You know, you don't have to train from the age of 7 to build the strength, never mind the skill and the experience to land an arrow where you need it to go.
So the normal soldier, typically you'd be given that musket, a bit of training, you're ready to go.
Take a farm boy out of the fields and give him this. He may never have fired a gun in his life. But, you know, a couple of weeks training, drill. It's all about loading and firing, 3 rounds per minute. If you've got the teeth to tear the cartridge, the strength to march for, you know, hundreds of miles, and the ability to point this in the vague direction of the enemy, you know, you're in the army, essentially.
So what are we looking at here?
This is Brown Bess, to give her generic nickname. You might know it as a long land pattern musket. There's a whole series of them, culminating pretty much in the India pattern used in the Napoleonic War period.
But you got this absolutely vicious bayonet on top.
Absolutely, yeah. It's have a half pike, effectively, with this. Not super long, but long enough to do the job. And then you have the ability to deliver devastating volleys of musketry.
How does it work? How's the gunpowder ignited and the balls spat out the end?
Yeah, so ignition is one of the key bits of technology that we have to perfect for reliable battlefield weapons that we can give a whole army, you know, regardless of skill level. So you'd be familiar with the term flintlock. They didn't use that at the time. They called this a firelock, most likely, or a musket. You'd have a sharp piece of flint, and it scrapes burning hot metal from this, which was called the steel or the hammer or the frizzen. You'll see a shower of sparks come off this, only the sparks are igniting gunpowder in the pan. It's like a spoon-shaped pan. There's a vent or a touch hole there you can just about see. Yeah. Through into the barrel where you've loaded your powder, you've loaded your ball. That's how it works. Hot sparks.
And that sends the power, ignites the powder and sends the ball shooting out through there.
Tremendous pressure.
So this really was like a firepower revolution.
It absolutely was. To us, it's a beautiful antique, but also a killing machine.
Can I have a go?
Absolutely, you can have a go. I won't comment on the skills until I've seen the results.
Let's go. The first version of the land pattern musket came into service as early as 1722. The Brown Bess filled the air with noise, lead and smoke on hundreds of 18th and 19th century battlefields, from Quebec right through the American Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. Now Jonathan is going to attempt to train me to fire one effectively.
Ready?
Ready.
Bring it up to your hip, ready to load. Half cock. It's the expression. Go off at half cock. And then grab a cartridge.
I'd had a cartridge belt here, would I?
You would. A cartridge, yeah, box. Okay. It's where the teeth are very important. And you prime using the same powder you're going to shoot with. That's it. And then with the back of the hand for safety, close that pan. Good. So ground the butt to the left of your left foot there. Spin it round so the rammer's towards you. It's always, that's it. Upend it. Make sure it's all in there before you push the ball in. And then ramming that charge, or that bullet, on top of the charge, all the way down. Quite hard, as hard as you can with finger and thumb. Return your rammer.
And you're doing this with the French Imperial Guard coming up the slope towards you?
Yes, but that's why you train to do this, and almost only this, to be fair, as a soldier at the time. Okay, so we are now ready to shoot. So we need to bring the cock to full cock, and then present, keeping the finger off the trigger until we're ready to fire. Again, they wouldn't care about that then. And when you are ready, pulling it in tight to the shoulder, you can pull through on that trigger, using the front sight to aim just as you would with a modern firearm. There we go.
Whoa.
Very nice.
That is a heck of a kick.
It's a fair bit of recoil, but it's more of a push than a modern rifle.
Yeah. It's not a sudden. It's just a really strong, powerful.
Yeah, you know when you've had an experience with old Brown Bess.
But I mean, I'm obviously very close to target. But that's pretty good aiming there.
That's good. Yeah, the potential of this thing is better than you think.
I guess the key question is how quickly can you fire and reload?
3 rounds per minute was.
That's what they were trained to do.
Yep.
Okay.
The stated requirement.
And the other thing is, you're standing right next to each other. You might have a bayonet on it. You got to you might end up whacking someone with the ramrods, or you've got to watch your elbows and watch your eyes.
This is exactly why we've done quite a loose version of the drill, obviously, but they would literally have it drilled into them. All of those motions would be crisp. I mean, they had to look good doing it as well.
So your next door neighbour would be doing exactly the same thing.
Their one job was to get this thing loaded and discharged in the direction of the enemy.
There's nothing sort of primitive about that. I mean, that would knock down an advancing enemy. And they were standing so close. Their ranks could be so close to each other, and they were just blazing away at each other. It must have required extraordinary courage and discipline.
I can't even imagine standing or kneeling in that position and just taking fire, giving fire, not knowing when your friend might drop next to you or you might drop. And a wound from one of these balls, as we're going to see, is significant.
It's that thudding sound. It really does make you think you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely more accurate than I was expecting the Brown Bess to be. Because I've always thought they're just they're mass weapons. The idea was just get a load of balls going down the battlefield and hope some of them hit something.
That's kind of their primary role, but the potential for individual marksmanship was definitely there, out to sort of 100 yards.
We're going to do the gel block. I might move forward because I actually do want to hit that.
I'd recommend it.
Let's go a few steps forward, shall we?
Yep.
Just over 200 years ago, a British infantry battalion at full strength could shoot up to 1,000 Brown Bess muskets at once. It was massive firepower. To get an idea of the actual damage they could inflict on the enemy, I'm now going to aim at a special gel block that approximates the damage that would be done to flesh and bone.
Same drill as before.
Now I've got the hang of that.
If there are any loose grains visible, just blow them away. Once you've got the sort of the mouth of the paper in there, you can just give it a shake.
And then it's bullet last.
And then it's bullet last, yeah. That's the British drill anyway.
Oh, fiddly, isn't it?
It's going to get harder the more shots you fire, but try to finger and thumb and just bash it down repeatedly. That's it. So turn the rammer, ready. Wow. Okay, let's blow it through, lay it down. And it's not looking great for the gel block.
Yeah. Wow, that is that's been absolutely, it's gone straight through the middle there, hasn't it?
I do believe the bone is shattered. There's a piece of it on the floor.
Wow. Right, should we go and take a look under the light?
Yep.
That effect on the bone is extraordinary, isn't it?
That's the missing piece. Now, obviously, in reality, that wouldn't come flying out the top. But if you look in there, you'll see that it's absolutely smashed.
And this is what forensic pathologists and things would use as a bone substitute. So this is pretty. We get a pretty accurate sense of what it is.
It's the same density. It fractures in the same way.
It sent fragments of bone into the body around it.
Yep, there's a huge piece of bone that's been pushed into the wound there. And of course, trying to deal with this surgically is that's why limbs would just come off.
Oh, I see. So, because if this is what your leg looked like, they'd say we haven't got time to deal with this.
Yeah, it's the tissue is, for want of a better word, pulped. The bone fragments are lacerating the muscle tissue even more. Your blood vessels in there, of course, which we don't hear.
This has taught me to think about those infantrymen in quite different ways. They're standing very close, they're blazing away at each other. It would have been, to have the courage to stand under that kind of intensity when mates around you are being felled with wounds like this is amazing.
Exactly, the psychological effect is probably almost as important. Not for you if you're struck perhaps, but almost as important as the wounding effect. But infection was a huge problem. It's a roll of the dice, essentially. So you've got the trauma, and then the surgical complications, and then you've got to survive the infection.
I guess to come back to the weapon, what is it about these muskets, these 18th century muskets, that define the way the battles fought? Just long lines of men at point blank range, just blazing into each other.
Yeah, but I mean, your marksmanship has shown that out to 100 yards or so, you can hit a man with Brown Bess, the India pattern musket as you've been using today. And it doesn't really matter, because if you don't hit the guy you're aiming at, you'll hit the guy next to him with close formation tactics. Light infantry tactics, a little bit more like the modern day, but for the average soldier's experience, it doesn't matter if you miss.
One of the first things Wellesley did was join forces with part of the Portuguese army. Initially, this new Anglo-Portuguese army recruited around 2,500 Portuguese soldiers. The Portuguese army was short of weapons, but the British had brought additional guns to equip them. Nothing characterises the warfare of the Peninsular War quite so much as the rifle brigades. Wellesley famously and affectionately referred to his Portuguese riflemen, the caçadores, as my fighting cocks.
The rifle of choice was the Baker rifle. This is an original for you?
It's model pattern 1805.
1805, and it's a really good weapon. It just comes into position nicely. It's a relatively short barrel for a rifle, so good for sniping activity.
This shorter because they fought between the bushes and everything, you know. Needs a shorter gun.
The snipers.
Snipers. 3 small LED lamps to put inside the barrel.
Okay.
And then you can see the rifling inside of the bore. Okay.
Okay. So you've put illumination in, and oh wow!
There are 7 grooves.
That is extraordinary. I can really see the grooves in there. Makes the ball spin, and a spinning ball is more stable. And by being more stable aerodynamically, it's not only more accurate, it also shoots further. So, I mean, compared to a smoothbore musket, a smoothbore brown Bess shoots, what, 40 meters?
40 meters.
Top.
Maximum.
Maximum.
Yeah. The Baker's 300 meters.
300. So this can shoot 300 meters, but only if you use forced ball.
Only that.
Explain the difference between forced ball and counter, because it depends on the situation, doesn't it?
Exactly. The riflemen or the Portuguese caçadores or 95 rifles can use 2 types of ammunition. For fast firing is normal musket, you know.
So just a cartridge to that, I can feel that's got the ball in the cartridge and powder.
Is the cartridge and powder, you see?
Okay, so I can see. So it's got the ball, and there's the powder, it's all wrapped up, you pop that in.
That is normal.
And that explodes and sends that out. So
then
once the enemy's close, you don't want long range.
No.
You want quick. You want quick.
You use that.
You use that.
However, when using the Baker rifle at long range, and to gain the maximum effect from the rifling, you need to use forced ball, a lead ball with a patch.
And the patches are kept in here. So in the butt of the rifle there is a little patch box, very clever little design, and you need that.
Yeah, and you need the ball.
Because the idea of this is you put the patch there and the ball, and that, oh, that's tight. That really has to be forced. That's why they call it forced ball. And that is what's going to make it spin.
Yeah, spin inside,
because it's so tight in there.
Yeah.
But another thing about the Baker rifle, because it was very much used by snipers, they're shooting from cover. They had all sorts of extraordinary shooting positions. Sometimes you would see them shooting on the ground with their feet crossed, using their feet like that as a gun rest. I think you've got to be pretty careful that that doesn't ricochet back into your face. Sometimes they would shoot using their shako, their headwear to rest on. Other times they're here shooting on their knees, and other times they're standing to shoot. So lots of different positions, different ammunition. It's really adaptable according to the situation.
Situation, exactly.
Introduced during the stalemate of static and bloody trench warfare in 1915, the Webley Mark VI revolver would serve as the standard issue sidearm for British soldiers for the remainder of the First World War. Designed as a top-break revolver with a double-action mechanism and potential speed loader accessory, the Webley Mark VI was considered to be vastly superior to its predecessor models, its 6-inch barrel also offering improved accuracy. Whilst the official service sidearm for the British military during the Second World War was the Enfield No. 2 Mark I revolver, a shortage in production led to many Webleys returning to frontline service in the conflict.
The trenches and going over the top is the first thing that I think of when I see a revolver like this. Did the British not adopt a self-loader like the other countries do?
They do, but only in a very limited fashion and very late on. So it's 1944 before the Browning High Power is the version made in Canada is adopted for pretty much only airborne troops. So right in the last phase of the war. Prior to that, it's revolvers for everybody if you need a sidearm.
Yeah. Why did the British have to be difficult and not just go with the flow?
In part, I think it's because they've equipped. You've got a Bren gun in every section, replacing the Lewis. You've got the section leader with his submachine gun. So they feel like this is kind of, very few frontline infantry have to even use a pistol of any kind. So I guess they feel like they go with the technology they know.
Yeah.
But they do make a change.
Yes, they do, and it's important to mention as well that when we think of these revolvers, sometimes we associate them with just those cowboys and having to cock it back every time. This is double action, so.
Yep, the Webleys were always double action. Yeah. In fact, the British history of revolvers starts really with self-cocking. So you pull the trigger and the hammer comes back and flies forward.
Yeah.
Whereas America, especially in the West, very much obsessed with deliberate cocking it and firing it. It made for a more reliable mechanism if you were mass producing, is the reason for it.
Well, they've also got this revolver next to it, the Enfield as well. How do they compare?
Well, this is the thing. So I've actually chosen for you our latest Enfield-made Webley, which is interesting.
Right,
it's made at the Royal Small Arms Factory at Enfield, little crown on there, and it's 1925. So this kind of thing is what would still have been in service with the RAF, with the Royal Navy, into and throughout the Second World War. But, and I've got you the earliest one of, well, this version at least, that we have, 1934, and the earlier version, still with a hammer on, a usable hammer, is 1920, is in the 1920s. So, major overlap between these two.
Yeah,
but
slightly smaller.
It's significantly smaller, I think. Yeah, it's like a baby version of the set. They're very similar looking, but it is actually a new design. So Enfield go from making Webleys, like copying Webleys legitimately, to copying them illegitimately. They nicked the design for the 38 caliber Webley Mark IV, and then ended up the British government ended up having to procure those from Webley. So there's a bit of intrigue going on there as well. In theory, by 1939, anyone who does need a revolver on the front lines is going to be equipped with these. But if you're on a ship or if you're in the RAF, you may well still have maybe even Mark IV Webleys and certainly Mark VIs.
Well, it's an interesting backstory. Let's get into the nuts and bolts. 6 rounds, .455.
Yeah, so both of these guys are still 6 rounds. It's really just saving you weight and a bit of size. They're functionally identical. You pull the trigger, it fires.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the loading's it's going to take longer than your M1911.
Oh, it certainly is. So lever on the side for both of these. Lever on the side, break it open. Any empty cases come out. If you've only fired some, only the cases will come out. It's engineered quite cleverly in that respect. And then you have to, by this era, probably single loading 6 rounds. Snap it back together, and you either pull through or you deliberately aim.
Yeah.
And you get quite a nice trigger pull there on single action mode.
Despite its smooth trigger pull when aiming in single action mode, the Webley's relatively long reload process certainly dated the gun in comparison to the magazine-fed semi-automatic pistols of the era. Nonetheless, with a considerably larger barrel diameter, the impressive stopping power of the revolver made it a favoured sidearm to the standard issue Enfield.
How does it compare in terms of stopping power?
Well, this is the interesting thing with both of these remaining in service, not quite alongside each other, but at the same time, is that this thing is pretty weak. It's the 38 Smith & Wesson cartridge, which is not, like, you would not want to carry that as a policeman on the streets these days, put it that way. And yet officers, vehicle drivers, people like that are having to rely upon it. in a way, if you're in the RAF or the Royal Navy and have a revolver, you're kind of better off. You're less likely to need to use it. Yeah. But you have a massive diameter, heavy bullet there. They're both traveling very slowly, so they're not doing a great amount of penetration, but the hole it puts through you is very clearly a lot bigger.
It could knock
with
you
the
back.
older gun.
Yeah.
It wouldn't physically knock you back, but psychologically there is something about getting struck with a more massive bullet.
Interesting,
And
okay.
it makes that larger hole, more bleeding, not nice to think about, but that's what puts people on the ground.
Well, Jonathan, if I had to ask you, and it's very unfair of me to do this, but if you'd prefer to take one of these into combat or your Colt, I'm assuming you're going to go for the Colt instead?
I might,
unpatriotic?
Well, I might try and split the difference and go for a 1944 Para Browning high power, which gives me 13 rounds of 9mm.
Okay, all right.
Which, brace for it in the comments section, is even better than a 1911. I certainly wouldn't prioritise either of these. I'd rather have a Luger, quite frankly, than either of these. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Well, enough chit chat. Let's get to the range and see how this thing performs.
Yep, let's do it. So this is a little bit vintage by World War II.
Yeah.
Or Second World War, as we would say, but nonetheless does the job.
We've got to take into account that this is quite a lengthy process compared to the magazine.
Certainly in the First World War, officers would have a speed loader, and it's just, you bang it on, all 6 go in. By this point, anyone that's still using it, I'd be surprised if they're getting hold of speed loaders, so it is a little bit more laborious than inserting a magazine.
And are you going to go for the 2 hands or the 1 hand?
I'm going to go old school, like they would have, as they would have done.
Back in the day, 1-hander?
1 hand.
Right,
Yep.
In your own time, Jonathan. Top target. See how we do.
So that is single action, so cocking it first.
Yep. Oh, that's closer, yeah.
And the last shot, we will pull through on the trigger.
Grouping's pretty good. How does that feel sort of recoil-wise? Because I guess we tend to associate the revolvers as having more of a kickback than the self-loaders.
With 2 hands, you have much more control over recoil, so if you want to shoot rapidly, frankly, that's the way to go. That was very little done in the Second World War. They'd be firing deliberate like that, or rapidly from the hip, looking where they're shooting.
Right, okay.
So
Wild West style.
Probably the closest thing to it.
Grouping's pretty good. We're about sort of 10 metres or so away. Pretty happy with that.
Yeah, so the typical kind of pistol engagement range with any kind of success, any time in history with any type of pistol is about 10 metres.
Exactly.
So, and I'm very calmly delivering fire here, mostly single action. I just wanted to show you that you may well see the sort of quivering of the hand as I try to pull the double action shot for the final shot. But as you can see, I've landed that shot with the other. So for a military, mass-produced, standard issue military handgun, it's really not that bad. It's just quite big and heavy, which of course is why we see the smaller revolver, or revolver pistol as we would call it in Britain, supplanting this. Certainly the army is already equipped with it by the Second World War.
Another weapon with a lineage that can be traced back to the late 19th century conflicts in Britain's colonies, the No. 4 Mark I Lee Enfield would become the new and improved bolt-action rifle issued to British infantrymen during the latter half of the Second World War. Introduced in 1941, the weapon was built upon the legacy of its earlier models, specifically designed to meet the demands of an ever-changing style of warfare. With a 10-round .303 detachable magazine and robust bolt-action mechanism allowing for rapid cycling, The No. 4 Lee Enfield enabled trained riflemen to achieve an impressive rate of fire, a hallmark of British infantry tactics since the First World War.
Jonathan, the Lee Enfield, I've almost run out of words to describe this weapon. It's just an absolute classic. For those who don't know, what's the backstory behind this?
Well, the backstory behind this one is that Britain wanted a new service rifle, but having tried all sorts of self-loading rifles, including in 1939 an M1 Garand, they didn't want one. So they wanted all they wanted, it's like comfort food in the form of a gun. They wanted to keep nearly all of the ergonomics, the accuracy, the short length, the relatively low weight that they had with the SMLE, but they wanted something brand new, primarily to make it cheaper, so you can make it more quickly and more economically. But also, it wasn't like the Sten getting cheaper over time. It was also quality of life improvements, if you like, which we can get into. But the main kind of giveaway is actually this bit. So if anyone's confused, SMLE, this often gets called an SMLE. It's not an SMLE. Don't call it that. And you can tell because it has this great, whacking great bit of barrel and sight protector sticking out the front.
Don't call it an SMLE.
Absolutely not, no.
And you know, what is it about the British that you mentioned earlier that they have the option of maybe going to the M1 Garand and they decide not to? What is it that they feel, despite all these new technologies coming in, other countries, even like you said, the USSR, you know, the United States, they're all adopting semi-automatic. Why do they think that the bolt action will still do the job?
So a number of the major combatants in the Second World War had, at least in limited numbers, a service self-loading rifle, semi-automatic rifle. The British just took, so the Garand they got in 1939 for testing, this was already under development. They had already decided, the decision was made, they weren't going to go back on that, but they were prepared to look at what might come next. Having adopted a self-loading rifle in 1918, would you believe, and then cancelling the order immediately, so very forward-thinking and then immediately not. We end up with the SMLE, and we must remember the SMLE saw service throughout the war, especially in the Middle East, North Africa theatres. It's around throughout. So if your ancestor fought in the war, look up where they were, because that will dictate where it was. Also time. So from 1939 to 1941, there were no significant numbers of this in service. It would have been an SMLE. But once this thing comes into mass production in 1941, it's the new standard.
Yeah, and we must mention that compared to other bolt actions, the Kar 98 or the Mosin as well, this is, you could call it superior in the sense that it holds more rounds as well. So you've got 10 rounds in the chamber.
Again, that's a decision made back in, way back when, in 1888. Initially 8 rounds with the Metford and then 10. So the British always wanted high capacity and speed of action as well is the other thing.
Of course, that's the other thing I was going to mention. That you can use that bolt whilst you're aiming down the sights.
So there is a side story here where the British go for a completely different, they throw all this out the window and go for much more of a target accuracy orientated rifle with different sights and a less slick action, aping the Mauser more, and only a 5-round mag. But the First World War puts paid to that, and they stick with the SMLE. And then this is the next service rifle, rifle number 4. So we've gone to a new numbering system, number and mark, and the old SMLE becomes rifle number 1. So it's still actually number 1, but not really, because this is the real, the new technology, but very conservative, and it's rifle number 4.
Used in nearly every theatre of the Second World War, the No. 4 Enfield was a refined version of its SMLE predecessor. A simplified design to ease mass production, a heavier barrel for improved accuracy, and numerous other technological improvements.
If you were to put a Lee Enfield that was used in the trenches in comparison to this, might look fairly similar, but it's pretty different.
Similar overall, different in every detail. Every part on this is new. They're just economizing, but without sacrificing quality. At least initially. There is a 2-groove barrel version of this that's an economy version where it's just enough grooves to spin the bullet, essentially. And they have to make economies on the sights as well, because they can't make enough of those.
Yes, and you can see here, in terms of the sights, it's got a couple of options as well, hasn't it?
Yes, so the bottleneck in production led to the first rifles coming into service only having what I think we're going to have you use, the battle sight. So if you've cross-trained on the Bren and the Sten, just a big old aperture at the back, that's probably quite convenient. But you would also be trained on rifles that had the full micrometer adjustable, almost target sight. So they do go back to that idea of target orientated shooting.
Yeah, firing over.
A sight at the back and a sight right at the front. The maximum distance makes it really accurate.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the SMLE was all about snap shooting. You see a running target, you bring it up, you shoot. The sights are almost like an AK. And you see this a bit on the Mosin, Russian Mosin as well. The sights are like halfway down the gun, halfway down the rifle. So the slightest amount of movement translates to a miss. They wanted to go back to a sight as far back as you could get it, and adjustable to every little distance that you might need it. And then you're looking through that aperture.
Well, I never ever get tired of firing one of these, so without further ado, let me take this to the range and we'll have a go.
Great.
Okay, Jonathan, I've got the Lee Enfield in hand. We're going to load 10 rounds because we can. Might feel a little bit weighty, but the Lee Enfield's not a particularly heavy rifle.
No, I think, well, it's relatively short. What would add a little bit of weight is, of course, carrying 5 extra rounds on the gun, but you've got to carry those rounds anyway. And I don't know about you, I'd rather have 10 ready to go.
Right.
Even if, once you've fired your 10, you may well having to be loading 5, firing 5, or even in an emergency, loading singly.
Take the safety
off first, important step.
Yeah. Open the bolt up.
Yeah, because the safety locks the bolt shut as an extra safety measure. Doesn't just disable the trigger.
Yeah.
So there's 5.
It's 5.
You've got a handy guide on there. You've got it, yeah. And then if you want to go for the full house,
yeah, let's give it a go.
Another one of those, just like you did last time. That's it. The further to the back, basically.
There we go.
For pushing them in.
Hole and chamber. A little bit tricky, but not too bad actually.
You'd be drilled to
a lot quicker than that.
To do this. So.
And I'll close the bolt.
That's it, and you're now ready to shoot.
So about now, I'm already feeling like starting to get a little bit heavy trying to maintain this fire. You let me know how close I'm getting or if I'm way off it.
You're doing okay. Keep the same point of aim, that's the thing.
Well, I certainly felt towards the end, especially the left arm, my arm's hurting a little bit. It's tough to maintain that sort of accurate fire at that pace with 10 rounds.
I mean, in reality, you wouldn't want to be standing up in the face of the enemy for more than a quick snapshot and then back down into cover. So, you know, you could be reassured that if you're feeling a bit fatigued doing that, that's quite normal, really. You've still got quite a bit of a lever there, and it gets a little bit tiring.
Originating as a result of a search for a suitable self-loading pistol to replace the variety of revolvers in service at the time, the Colt was designed by the prolific gunmaker John Browning, shortly before the outbreak of the First World War. It would go on to serve as the standard issue sidearm for the United States Armed Forces from 1911 to 1985.
Jonathan, the Colt M1911. Now, before we even go into the specifics of the gun, I want you to tell me, why is it so ubiquitous? I mean, when I think of any sort of video game and movie, you're likely to see this gun, especially if it's from that sort of 40s, 50s era.
I think it's the silhouette of it. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
I have to distill it down to that. That and the fact it's adopted by the US government. So it can be the good guy's gun and the bad guy's gun.
Yes, of course.
And it just has that, there's something about the lines. You can't necessarily call it art, but it's a beautiful piece of design. And it just looks right, whether it's the goodies or the baddies holding it. And as soon as it starts showing up in those war movies and those gangster movies in the interwar period, I think that's where it comes from.
That's it, yeah. Gangsters, government officials. We're speaking about it in the context of World War II. Let's talk a bit about that. The US Army, at some point, they make the decision. They go from the revolver to the self-loading pistol. When does that happen, and why do they take that decision?
Kind of early on, in principle, so that they have not the final trials that will decide the new pistol, but 1902, they're conducting trials of quantities of self-loading pistols. They're looking at the Luger, they're looking at everything that's out, the Browning pistols, notably the Colt 1902, designed by John Browning, which is the ultimate ancestor of this thing. They're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater at that point. They're still looking at the current revolvers from Colt and Smith & Wesson, the traditional purveyors of such weapons, but they're already quite geared toward a self-loading pistol. That's the infantry. The US cavalry are very much, we want our revolvers, thank you very much. And it takes those several years, up to 1911, to kind of convince them that A, a self-loading pistol is the way forward, and B, that it's this.
And why do they think that this is the way forward? I mean, what we've got here next to it is the British Enfield revolver. They're sticking to the revolver during the Second World War. What is it about the self-loading pistol that seems preferable?
It's always hard to disentangle straightforward answers to these kind of questions, but my strong impression, it's rapidity of accurate fire, or potentially accurate fire. Pistols are notoriously, or handguns generally, are not notoriously accurate. But the big drawback of something like this, you have that very long, and this is not bad, to be fair, that's quite a good, what we call double action trigger pull, but it's enough for my muscles to start quivering very slightly, throwing off the shot. And with a short barrel, short sight radius, as we call it, the tiniest amount of movement translates to meters either side of your opponent. Whereas what the self-loaders do, all of them, the Luger, the Savage, and the Colt, they're the final three in the trial, it means you have to have it cocked ready to shoot, otherwise it's not shooting at all. One of my favourite things to annoy my wife with is, that's not even cocked. It's not even going to go off. But you have to have this ready to shoot, you have to load your magazine, insert your magazine, chamber around, and then apply the manual safety, and then it has this other manual safety, a passive safety if you like. It doesn't shoot unless you grip it. So even with that off, that's fire. So once you've gone through all of that rigmarole, and this is something the US cavalry weren't keen on, they thought the safety could be knocked off too easily when drawing it. Then you have a very light trigger pull. So much lighter.
Doesn't shake as much.
And then it cycles itself. Every time, the energy stored in the cartridge cycles the slide between shots, and you can fire not only rapidly, because you can shoot a revolver accurately if you just spam that trigger really hard, but you're getting that lightness of the trigger with that rapidity of fire. For my money, those are the main reasons.
Yeah, not everyone is a Wild West gunslinger who's able to cock and fire the revolver really quickly, so that makes it really easy for the US infantry to fire quickly and accurately.
I think that's it, because there is only one round more than the typical revolver cylinder, only 7 rounds in this magazine. Having said that, the early self-loaders the US were looking at were in 38 before the whole caliber debate kicked off again, and that did give you 2 extra rounds. So in principle, the self-loading pistol gives you a high capacity as well, but how it boils down is you only get 1 more round. But 1 more round could make all the difference. If you find yourself in a gunfight with a pistol, 1 more round is actually really important.
Absolutely.
Fed into the Colt M1911 were .45 ACP bullet cartridges, thicker in diameter and height to the 9mm rounds that were used in other self-loading pistols at the time, including the German Luger and Soviet TT.
It is quite heavy. I can imagine it's once this is loaded, it's a fairly weighty gun.
Yeah, the bullet weighs a fair bit. It's 230 grains in old money, which is a substantial 15 grams, I think.
Right. Okay.
Times 7. plus the weight of the case, plus a bit more for the propellant and the primer. All things considered, it's going to weigh a little bit more than the service revolver that it's replacing, but not enough that most users are going to notice the difference. And actually, you have more weight up front, which is arguably going to make you a little bit more accurate, but then we really are into personal preference and skill and innate ability with a pistol, which a lot of people don't have.
Absolutely. And you talk about the stopping power. How does this weapon compare to the other self-loading pistols? As I mentioned, USSR, Germany, they've all got these self-loaders. How does it compare to them in terms of firepower? And how does it compare to the Enfield and Webley revolvers?
So Europe broadly sticks with that smaller caliber, higher velocity principle for pistols. The US was a bit off the pace there, arguably, but hey, 45 ACP still has its advocates.
And the longevity of this weapon, it's just absolutely insane. Introduced in 1911, and I mean, the conflicts that it goes through and it's used in its original form during the First World War, in this form during the Second World War, I'm guessing Korea, Cold War as well.
Oh yeah, Vietnam. Crawling through tunnels with a torch and one of these things.
Yeah.
It's in use all the way through. Well, 1985 is the nominal replacement.
Right.
With the Beretta M92 as the M9. So we're throwing back again, this time to the 1908 Luger round. That's what the 9mm is, but with a high capacity. So they're getting 15 rounds now. US Marine Force Recon in particular, I think MARSOC as well, are hanging on to, they're keeping these things running with new parts, off-the-shelf parts to keep them going. And in 2012, they buy a brand new 1911 under the designation M45A1, the close combat pistol. And it's this in desert color with a rail on the bottom for a light or a laser or both. And it's like, wow, the Marines are never going to give this thing up. But then as of literally last year, the final M45s were withdrawn. So it's not a very long service life for the final 1911, but overall, you're looking at well over 100 years.
It's had a good run. And listen, I'm excited. Let's give it a go on the range. Okay, Jonathan, so we've come down to the firing point, about 4 meters away from the target. Ear defenders on, and we've got the Colt aiming for the top target, semi-automatic, 7 rounds.
7-round magazine. Yep.
Do your worst. I'll tell you what, that's not a bad start, is it? You're right on the money there.
Not too bad. I don't get enough practice to do much better than that.
Hey, listen, that is, I mean, you've pretty much got all of them on the target there, right on the bullseye.
Yeah, it's not, honestly, it's inherently pretty accurate. We're pretty close. The only downside to the old-fashioned one-handed pistol hold is you're gonna get a little bit wary with 2 pounds of pistol hanging off the end of your arm. More so than if you had the modern two-handed grip. It gives you a bit more stability and maybe a bit more. I might have been able to close it up a little bit with a modern two-handed grip, but no one's really using that in combat. There's a reason why the 1911 survived so long in the civilian world as a competition pistol, because that straight back trigger, very crisp, short pull, short reset. It's great for great for military purposes, police, criminal purposes, but for competition as well. So that's partly why this thing has had the life that it has, because that civilian competition and self-defense world feeds back into the military, feeds back into the civilian, and sustains it to the present day. They're still being made, they're still being shot, they're still being carried, despite only 7 or 8 rounds in the gun.
I can see why.
Introduced just under a decade before the trusty Colt, was another loyal servant of the US Army. A design based off of the German Mauser Gewehr 98, the Springfield would go on to be used by the military throughout both the First and Second World Wars.
So Jonathan, next weapon, slightly bigger, we have the US Springfield rifle. Now, bolt action, does this get introduced as standard issue in the First World War?
Prior to, in fact. So it's introduced as a service rifle in 1903. Well, this is going to be the definitive US service bolt action rifle. Cribbing a lot from the German Mauser, in fact, which is not a bad thing, because that was the world standard bolt action in the 1890s. And so it's introduced in 1903, which means it's the de facto service rifle of the US forces in the First World War. The problem there is they don't have enough. So you end up with this two-tier system almost. It doesn't cause any huge issues. What you need is service rifles. They both work much the same way. And the other one is a British rifle.
Right, and fast forwarding to the Second World War, where is this used in the conflict? Who's receiving this? Is it the Marines or?
Well, this is the problem with, it's all very well inventing a new rifle or procuring a new rifle, but you've got to make enough to put in the hands of troops. And so the standard version of this, without this gubbins on the top here, is still around. You know, if you're not necessarily frontline US Army, you might well still have a Springfield at the beginning of the war. If you're the US Marines, who are not the poor relations in terms of combat experience and skill and the rest of it, but sometimes the poor relations in the procurement side, they've still got the standard infantry rifle version, some of them almost throughout the war. But this particular variant here, the A4, is a specific version for snipers. And so this is issued only to the platoon sniper. There's one sniper in every platoon.
And talk to me a little bit about this scope. It looks very different to the scopes that we see nowadays. It seems like a very small diameter of the scope itself.
Yeah, so it's not as though scopes that look a bit more like modern scopes didn't exist. No. But this is this was not their first choice, but the other choice couldn't make enough of them.
Right.
So we end up with the Weaver. This is the 330. This is a model 330, as it says on there.
Yeah.
Great big plate on there, but it's very slender. And really, don't think of it like a 12 power or 20 power modern sniper scope with the classic shape of a scope. It's really closer to a modern combat optic.
Right, okay.
So it's, in fact, even then, it's only 2.75 times magnification.
Right, okay.
It's not even the 4 power of a German sniper scope, which is only the same as a modern ACOG or an Elcan or something like that.
That's very interesting. Okay, so they're not even getting a huge advantage in terms of what they can see.
It's a huge advantage over iron sights.
Of course.
And you get a bit more in the way of light gathering. When it's dusk or dawn, you can be out doing stuff that you couldn't do with iron sights. You've got a single point of aim to worry about, not two. But yeah, a lot of sniping was done just with iron sights, with non-sniper rifles by potentially non-snipers. And in the First World War, an awful lot of sniping was done by the designated snipers with just iron sights, because the scopes were not always that great or that helpful.
You mentioned that the German sniper scopes tended to give you greater magnification. Does that not put these snipers at a great disadvantage?
If you're looking at your classic movie sniper duel, absolutely. In reality, you're going to play to your strengths and rely on fieldcraft to get a bit closer, or you're just going to take, I mean, bear in mind, we're not necessarily going for, T-zone headshots every time. We're going for probably centre mass. A bullet anywhere in the body is going to be a problem. So we'll just put it on safe. That's the safety there, that wing device there. So hand it over to you now.
Over to me, okay.
So keeping it pointing down the range.
All right. Now I always know I want to be leaning in when I'm taking this shot.
Always leaning in.
Always leaning in.
And when you're ready, push up that wing safety up and over the top till it's on the left.
Okay, so it's ready.
Yep, and then you're ready to fire your first shot, and then you go on and fire the remaining 4 at your leisure.
Here goes. So just aiming just below the red dot. bolt and action feels a lot smoother than the Enfield, actually.
Oh, controversial.
Controversial opinion. One more.
Pressure of the last round.
Pressure of the last round. I think it's also the goggles steaming up as well.
Probably doesn't help. It's a little bit warm today.
Yeah.
Okay, so just hand that over to me.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good.
Yeah, I
First
can't
time
really
out with that
see.
weapon.
Push up my goggles, but
You've got a group of 4, and then that last one you pulled off to the left a little bit, rushing it if you're anything like me.
yeah.
A little bit.
I think also once you fire the 4 rounds, you start to feel the weight of the gun a little bit more.
The longer you're in the air, the standing position is the least accurate. So
Yeah.
It's a good reason why it was, prone is preferred.
Really? Okay, so they'd most soldiers, if they could, to get more
If you can,
accuracy.
to take cover, to be less of a target, and then to deliver more accurate fire.
Despite its continued efficacy as a solid service rifle, the Springfield was replaced before the beginning of the Second World War, with what many still deem to be the defining infantry weapon of the 20th century. The M1 Garand was adopted by the US Army in 1936 as the first ever semi-automatic rifle to be used as a standard issue service weapon, and was produced over 5 million times throughout the Second World War.
Jonathan, the M1 Garand, arguably the most iconic weapon of the Second World War.
The finest battle implement ever devised, according to General Patton.
Right, okay, interesting. Well, tell me a bit about the backstory behind the introduction of this into the US Army.
So coming out of the First World War, like most nations, the Americans realized that some sort of self-loading rifle at some point was desirable. So the Americans had a series of, a whole development saga from the 1920s with one John Cancius Garand, who's a Canadian, joins the US arsenal at Springfield, the famous Springfield, where the previous rifle came from, and works in earnest on a new rifle. There's then a rival from Pedersen, which is similar size and weight and everything, but it's pretty clear. Looking backwards, it's pretty clear that this was going to win. It just ticks all the boxes.
Again, we must mention that there are other nations, the Germans with the Gewehr, the USSR with the SVTs, but the US are the first to introduce a semi-automatic rifle as standard issue?
Correct, yeah. The first in the world to adopt a self-loading rifle as a standard issue rifle. And of course, it takes a few years to get enough of them made, but you certainly, as far as milestones go in the history of firearms, it's a significant one.
In the Second World War, the British, the Germans, they're still using their bolt actions. How does this compare to the bolt action?
It just blows it out of the water completely. Like the difference between this and an automatic weapon, a fully automatic weapon, is far less significant as far as actual combat use, and certainly on the bigger scale, than the difference between a bolt action and this. It's night and day. And that scales all the way from the user, who's like having to work the bolt, and guys got extremely slick at doing that. Famously the British Expeditionary Force in the First World War, they're flicking that bolt back and forth and scoring hits. But that's the point. You have to train around that limitation of manual operation. This thing uses the gas produced by firing the cartridge, taps it back, taps it off, and drives a big old piston to recock and extract, eject, and rechamber, as well as recocking the mechanism. Does all of that stuff for you.
We can't mention the M1 Garand without talking about the ammunition and that iconic ping sound it makes. There's so many myths around it to do with the fact that the Germans, they'd know when the US soldiers had to reload because they'd hear the ping sound. Some people say they couldn't hear it. Talk to me about that myth.
Well, there is the clip. Now, obviously, the basis of the myth is not the whole full clip flying out of the gun. The theoretical problem is this. So if I just...
Right.
That's a rubber floor. Yeah. It does make a fair bit of noise when it comes flying out of the gun. Is that a problem? Short answer, no. It's not a problem. So this develops as a sort of a meme of the period, pre-internet meme.
Yeah.
It may have its roots in one or more guys who were in some sort of eerily quiet one-on-one situation, popping up and engaging each other, and someone's gun went dry and ping, and that enabled the enemy. This is usually associated with the Pacific, so the Japanese more so than the Germans. So we can't discount that from happening. It may be the origin. It may have been dreamed up in a pub somewhere, or a bar, because it's just not that plausible. If it ever happened, it's not a realistic concern for you as a soldier. There's so much other noise going on. People have done experiments. Mike Burns over at Bloke on the Range, have a look at that. He shows how even in a range environment, you can't really hear it when there's any amount of other noise going on. This is a deathly quiet room that's just gone.
And talk to me just about the actual mechanism itself. So what happens with once the soldier has fired 8 rounds? How does it all work?
So we'll see this when we shoot the thing, of course. But as far as the operation goes, you lock it open like this. We won't do it with this, but you just insert that clip of rounds there.
Yeah.
And then either the bolt will send its own way forward, or you assist it with the heel of your hand, and that slams forward. You put it on safe if you want to put it on safe, which you would have to at the time. And then, that means to shoot it, all you have to do is put your finger in the trigger guard, flick the safety out of the way. You might argue that's not the best way to do a safety now, but it was great then, and you're straight into the firing. And 8 rounds as fast as you can pull the trigger, with as much accuracy as you as a shooter can bring, with an excellent set of sights, and they're eminently adjustable as well, for windage and for elevation.
Right.
Soldiers love this thing.
An immensely popular rifle used right up until the height of the Cold War and sporadically beyond, it was time to find out for ourselves if the Garand's acclaim was justified by taking it to the range.
Okay, Jonathan, I'm excited for this one, the M1 Garand. We're going to fire one 5-round magazine, and then we'll do 8 afterwards. But we're still going to hear the ping for the 5 rounds.
We are, because obviously we fired 5 rounds out of the other rifles, so we're just going to do the same just to see what the results are.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the full 8 rounds.
Fantastic. Well, go wild.
As satisfying a sound as you're ever going to hear. I just had to hear it again. This time I was giving Jonathan permission, not that he needed it, to unload a full magazine as quickly as he could.
Bottom target. That was, how did that feel?
I don't know if I've actually fired a Garand that fast before. I felt like I was in good control, but then if you try and run the trigger, you can get ahead of yourself quite easily. And what you would always want to do is keep a good sight picture.
Absolutely.
And not fire faster than your own limits as a marksman, which I was starting to do toward the end.
And you realise you get through the round so quickly. Has it impacted on your accuracy?
It definitely has. Yeah, it's like 3-4 times the size there. It's just, if you're going that fast or faster, if you have more skill than me, you're putting lead between you and the enemy, essentially, or keeping heads down. That's the real value of this. In an American squad, you don't have access to that ready belt-fed firepower. You are your own suppressive fire with this thing.
And that's the thing, it's your choice, isn't it? If you want to be really accurate, you're not going to be firing at that rate. If you're covering fire, then you might want to pop them off a bit faster.
That's absolutely the value of rapid fire, but you're still going to want it to be better aimed than I can do.
What a privilege that was to see that being fired.
A sidearm equipped by most soldiers of the Soviet army during the Second World War, The TT-33, or Tokarev pistol, named after its designer Fedor Tokarev, was initially conceived as a modern replacement for the ageing Nagant M1895 revolver. The simplicity of its design, as well as an improvement in firepower, would result in the production of over 1 million of the pistols by the end of the conflict.
First up, the TT Tokarev 33. The Soviets, they've moved on from the revolver already by the early 20th century.
Effectively, yeah. Lucky, really, that they were able to get the thing into service and mass-produced in time to largely replace the old Nagant revolver, which was not spectacular. I mean, it kind of hung on for a bit. There's a bit of sneaky-beaky NKVD stuff with silencers that goes on, but the increasingly leading it into the war, the standard service pistol is now a self-loading pistol.
Yeah. What are they using during the First World War?
It's that Nagant revolver, 1895
okay. So
model.
this starts the production. They actually start off with an earlier version.
Yeah, so you've got a bonus here. So the TT-33 is what we're sort of focusing on. Almost imperceptible differences. We've got different serrations here, but there is an indicator of what they're going for here on the back. You see how that's a separate piece there, a cover?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a production change. Maybe more significant is the one you can't see inside the gun. The lugs that lock the barrel to the slide for firing, like a 1911, which this is somewhat similar to.
Yeah.
Instead of going to the trouble of machining them just on the bottom, they machine them in annular rings, and that saves time and effort, and that's hidden away inside.
And you mentioned there the Colt M1911 looks pretty similar. How does it differ, if at all?
So I think they were looking back to earlier John Browning designed pistols by Colt and by FN. The swinging link that's inside, again that we can't see, that connects the barrel to the frame, that's taken straight from the 1911. So they've taken that, and really it does look quite similar.
Yeah.
The ergonomics are, I mean, I don't think they're as good.
Yeah, I mean,
the grip angle, the thickness of it.
The first thing I notice is just how slender, when you're looking from the top down, it looks.
It's not too dissimilar from that famous Colt pistol.
It really isn't.
Smaller cartridge, of course. I'd say from here onwards, it's really very similar.
Yeah.
From here backwards, you have that distinctive curve, the bobbed hammer, not the sticky out spur, and this curve here, and just the way the frame then comes together is,
and how it feels in the hand. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of copying going on across all the sort of belligerents of the Second World War.
I mean, Russia got hold of some Colt 1911s earlier on,
absolutely,
but they didn't copy it. They came up with their own version that was going to be cheaper to make, and then they made it even cheaper to make with the TT-33.
So they get there. It's just about a dozen or so years later than the Americans do.
And one more round.
And one more round, exactly, yeah. And also, you know, when I think of Soviet Union weapons, I almost assume, because of the amount of people in their army, that they have to mass produce these weapons. How many of these are made in the Second World War?
Well,
is everyone carrying one, first of all?
They're not going to make it to everyone in that enormous armed service, or multiple armed services, but everyone on the front line who needs one is pretty much getting one. They managed to make 600,000 between 1934 and 1941, and then they keep making them until I think well into the 1950s, well past what they're worried about. So it's one of the most produced pistols, and they're getting them made in time to actually mass issue as well, which is what matters, of course.
Got you. Well, let's talk about the sort of individual components of the weapon itself. Mainly made out of metal?
Absolutely, yeah. So they have gone basically immediately for polymer grips rather than wood.
Yeah.
Everything else on the weapon is steel. We're still very much in the era of machined steel.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the important things you might have noticed, there's no safety.
No.
There is no manual safety, which is kind of surprising at this time. There was a little bit of paranoia in most nations.
Yeah.
The 1911 ends up with a manual safety and a grip safety.
Yeah, the grip safety.
The only safety is you don't chamber around until you need to.
Reliant on careful handling to prevent accidental discharge, a design choice that prioritised simplicity over safety, the TT-33 was chambered with a new and powerful 7.62 by 25mm Tokarev cartridge, a round that proved highly effective against enemy personnel in urban and close quarters combat.
You mentioned the round earlier, 7.62, different to, how does that compare to the calibers of ammunition that the other nations are using?
So I suppose there are three big ones. 9x19, the German P08 Luger cartridge, so still used today in such a widespread fashion. Great compromise of sort of penetration and the size of the hole it puts through people, to put it bluntly. 45 ACP, the Americans love that perceived stopping power. I don't want any arguments in the comments. Yeah. I'm in the middle. But at this time, you're definitely getting a good trade-off there, because you've got a big, heavy bullet with a bit of. People know they've been shot by it. Let's put it that way. Psychologically, it might have an effect, and it does for the shooter. This thing is on the other end. This thing is all about penetration. So it's a derived version of the old C96 Mauser 7.63 by 25 cartridge. It's 7.62 by 25, and they have upped essentially the propellant, the pressure of the round. So for its time, 8 shots that will go through a person in a handgun.
And we talked about that sort of extra round as well, what difference it really makes, but if you've got a choice, you're always going to take the extra round.
I'd say at this time with a sidearm, every round counts, because you are not doing Call of Duty speed reloads. Yeah. You've got maybe one reload, and you're going to have to do that in a slower fashion. And this is actually fairly effective for a rapid reload for the time, again. But the way pistol combat happens, if it happens, you're probably not going to get to reload. And if you do, you've only got the one magazine.
How long does it last in the Soviet army?
So into the 1950s, it's being replaced by the Makarov PM, which is still in pretty widespread service in Russia and elsewhere, which is just a bit more compact. It's less powerful. Yeah. They've sort of done what the British did in the Second World War, or prior to the Second World War, and gone for something that's kind of good enough. But this hangs on for quite some time, because people like that stopping power, if I can put it that way.
Yeah. Well, enough chit chat. Let's go and fire this down the range.
Absolutely. So much easier than a revolver. Got our preloaded 8 rounds into the pistol grip.
Sven, you can just see again from that, it's very slim.
Pretty good for the time, I would say.
Yeah.
And the instinct is to go straight for a two-handed grip, but I'm not going to do that.
No, that's not like you, Jonathan. Let's see, aiming at the top target, how good the accuracy is.
Can only apologise.
No, those cartridges go absolutely flying.
Mr. Tokarev does what he likes.
Yeah. Wow, that was, first thing I noticed was actually far more of a kickback than I would have expected for such a small, sleek-looking gun.
Yeah, I mean, this cartridge for the time was, or even for this time, because it's older than this, it's pretty pokey. You know, yeah. It's got origins with the Mauser broom handle C96, and it's been uprated since then. So there's a fair bit of pressure going on, fair bit of velocity, and that translates to quite a lot of movement of the working parts and a little bit of kick. But
is it difficult to control compared to the revolvers? How would you compare those?
Well, in terms of the felt recoil, it's sort of snappier.
Yeah, got that for sure.
Yeah, but a lot of that's down to technique. Again, with 2 hands, it'd be so much easier to sort of twist it down a bit and control it. And if you were shooting rapidly, I was shooting very deliberately there to try and do my best, but yeah. You would want the best control. But again, you're probably going to be shooting it from the sort of waist and just looking over the gun if you're shooting it rapidly.
But yeah, there's a real perceptible ka-chunk going on there. I could feel the slide clonking back and forth, which is interesting. I've shot one of these before. I don't remember that, but not something you're going to notice in the heat of combat. But in a nice, calm indoor range, you do feel it.
Absolutely, we could hear, and I literally felt the cartridges flying absolutely everywhere. And in terms of your accuracy, again, pretty good, pretty impressive grouping again, Jonathan. So
I'd say the trigger is kind of, the double action pull on something like the Webley is long and heavy. This is short and a bit crisper, but the single action on the revolver is better than this. So the revolver kind of brackets this in its trigger control. But you know what you're getting with this. It's the same every time.
Whilst the Soviet war machine produced an exciting and modern replacement as its sidearm, the primary weapon taken into battle by most infantrymen had a history stretching back to the end of the previous century. Originally designed in 1891, the Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle would undergo several modifications before its M91-30 variant became standard issue for the Red Army. By the time World War II had broken out, the rifle's ruggedness, reliability, and mass production capability made it an indispensable weapon for the nation's war effort.
Right, Jonathan, the Mosin Nagant or not Nagant?
In the West, we tend to call it the Mosin Nagant after the tradition of Lee Enfield, Martini Henry. Most Russian commentators, experts, I mean, they're quite right. It was never called that formally. There was a design competition, and the Nagant design was entered, but it was not selected. The Sergei Mosin design was selected. Let's just say elements from the Belgian Nagant rifle did find their way into this. But officially, it's the Mosin rifle, or it's the three-line rifle, model 1891, which is a bit of a giveaway. Exactly. As to when it comes into service.
Right, I was going to say, when does it come into standard service? Because obviously first it'll be in the Imperial Russian Army during the First World War, and then obviously it carries on into the Soviet Army.
Yep, so the original 1891 model, full length, a little bit longer than this. The Soviet Union, the relatively new Soviet Union, does what the British Empire did in 1902, which is to shorten their service rifle. So they do away with the carbines, or most of the carbines, shorter versions for specialist troops, and they issue everyone a shorter rifle. It's in the same ballpark, same kind of barrel length, same kind of overall length, same kind of weight as a result, because you're making it lighter too. So then they've already jumped, as it were, on the technology of 1891, and they're kind of stuck with it, which means that it's one of the longest serving weapons around, given that it's still showing up, if not in frontline military service, then still in conflict zones, including Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah, that's just fascinating in and of itself.
Militia are using it.
Of course, yeah. It's along with the British, they're the only nation who actually continue using what they were using primarily in the First World War into the Second World War, with obviously some development.
Yeah, I mean, Britain goes for the number 4, which is a radical redesign.
Yeah, of course.
Change of horses midstream, as it were. The war's already kicked off, and so they go for a complete replacement, but something very similar. The Soviets kind of stick with the kind of very crudely, lock the end off and crack on with what they've got, and it does the job. So this is the 1891/30, as in 1930. So everything else is getting modernised with new weapons. Pretty much everything else is getting replaced. The good old rifle soldiers on. There is, of course, an attempt to introduce a self-loading rifle.
Of course, yes.
When the war's already underway.
The SVT. What happens there? Because they're trying to do like what the Americans are doing and introduce that semi-automatic rifle. What goes wrong? Why do they end up sort of sticking with it?
Well, so you've got a brand new Tokarev designed pistol. Why not have a brand new Tokarev designed self-loading rifle as well? It's of course where the Americans go. 1936, the M1 Garand comes in. It's the first general issue self-loading rifle, and everyone else is going. If they haven't already looked at self-loading rifles, they're maybe panicking a bit, and they're starting to look. I wouldn't say the Soviet Union is panicking. It's already been looking at this kind of technology, but definitely the Garand is a bit of a kick up the backside to work on. So we have the AVS 36, and when we have the SVT 38, and we have the SVT 40, which is the final version. Starts being mass produced, starts coming into service, but they start to have some reliability issues. it's a relatively early self-loading rifle for the scheme of things, which would be fine in peacetime, but there's a war on. The obvious thing to do is to fall back on what we already have and just go back to restart the production line, which had already been shut down. That's how close they were to standardizing on the new semi-automatic rifle.
And then the invasion came, of course, as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
So
halts everything.
Good old Victorian technology saves the day. You might lose a few more men, but we shouldn't overstate that. The Brits are still using a bolt action all the way through. Japan does the same thing.
Of course, and it's what the majority of soldiers are still using. I mean, when I think of this weapon, I sometimes associate it with those snipers, because you can attach a sniper scope to this.
Absolutely,
but
we have those as well.
Yeah, so you have those potential modifications, but actually, most soldiers are carrying this weapon in the Second World War.
They are, yep, and even those snipers, the SVT was so sort of far along that they were already looking to replace the Mosin snipers with a new self-loading sniper rifle. Doesn't disturb your sight picture, follow-up shots, brilliant. But again, they had reliability issues with those. They were just not as accurate.
Yeah.
Today you can make a self-loading rifle as accurate as a bolt action if you spend a load of money on it. Back then you really couldn't. So the famous Soviet sniper Lyudmila Pavlichenko, in terms of kind of propaganda and what people see, she's gifted an SVT-40 and she proudly, I'm sure genuinely proudly shows that off. But as far as we know, she carries on using the Mosin because it's the better rifle.
Well, speaking of famous snipers, Vasily Zaitsev, Enemy at the Gates. I need you to do some myth busting for me. I always ask one of these, Jonathan. That's that scene where you have the commissar, he's saying, oh, if one person dies, that's when you pick up his rifle.
When the one with the rifle gets killed, the one who is following picks up.
One person gets the rifle, one person gets the ammunition. Did that ever happen?
Well, I don't have the clip to hand you, but I guess the idea is I'm firing away, I get killed, you pick up my rifle. It's logical enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But surely they wouldn't have been sending their soldiers in without a rifle.
So, short answer, they did.
Okay.
Long answer, not in the way that they showed in the movie. And the movie is kind of like all of the worst things that could go wrong in the Soviet army all happening at once.
Yeah.
Civilian levies who were armed and sent out to fight. A lot of those did not have rifles, and they're literally having to attack with no weapon and I guess organically pick one up. I don't know if there was the scene where the guy is
they've come off
telling them that this is what's going to happen. I don't know if that ever happened, but certainly guys had to run into battle with no weapon, and they'd have no choice but to pick one up, either from a comrade or from the enemy. So there's a very strong nugget of truth to it, but it's not really relevant in the way that it's shown there, and it kind of paints. It really does fit that stereotypical human meat wave kind of thing.
Yeah,
that
just sending them forward.
Sometimes that happened, but not with that unit and not then. I think it's fair to say.
Okay.
But happened at Stalingrad, to my knowledge. Military historians may disagree.
The idea that Soviet high command solely relied on numbers to win battles simply isn't true. Nonetheless, on the occasion that an infantry charge was necessary, soldiers carrying the rifle would also be equipped with a socket bayonet, fitted to the rifle as a last resort for close quarters, hand-to-hand fighting.
Let's move on to the actual specifics of the gun itself. Its length, its mechanism. The bolt handle I've noticed different to the Lee Enfield. It's not sort of cut downwards. It's straight up. Assuming that makes it a little bit difficult to reload when you're sort of aiming down the sights.
I think you'll find that because I'm going to get you shooting one of these. Yeah. There are two ways to approach an easier to operate bolt action rifle. The very early ones, paper, like needle fire kind of things, they needed a lot of leverage. So something a lot longer than this, you get under it, you crank it up, you pull it back. The Enfield approach is very good. It gives you the same length, but it cranks it down so it's near the trigger. And there are those famous, the very well-trained soldiers that could finger and thumb that bolt from down
really
here.
quickly, yeah.
The other approach, because what you don't want is it sticking out and snagging on stuff, getting in the way, getting knocked out of engagement. Because if it gets knocked up, it won't fire like this. So the Soviet approach was, we won't turn it down, and I don't know the thinking behind this necessarily. They just went with shorten it. And I guess it's because, actually, it isn't that bad.
No.
When it gets fouled, dirty, maybe that would be a problem. But And you could always do that with it, muscle it up.
Understood. Okay, and also 5 rounds.
Yep, 5-round
7.62,
magazine.
I'm guessing.
Yep. Well, if this was long-lived, the round is even more long-lived.
Yeah.
Still in use today in the PKM, the SVD Dragunov. It's a Victorian rimmed rifle round introduced over 120 years ago. More than that, I can't add up. 1891.
Wow.
Absolutely, the longest-lived mainline, longest-lived rifle cartridge in military service.
Well, so it's got the longevity. Let's see how it performs in comparison with those other bolt actions. Let's take it to the range. Okay, I'm looking forward to this one, Jonathan. We're going to load it up, strip a clip of 5.
Yep, bolt forward and down.
I'm going to aim at the targets using the iron sights. Top target again. There was something I did want to ask, Jonathan, especially when you with a sniper rifle. Is it true that it's best to breathe out and slowly squeeze the trigger? Is that the way to get as accurate shot as possible?
In theory, yeah. I mean, you're standing, you're in the standing position. That's going to make a minimal difference in this position. But prone, yeah, you're going to want to breathe, oxygenate, and then the usual thing is you take a breath, you let part out so that you're not quaking. You know, you're limiting your movement, and then you release the shot. It's more of a sniper thing, but if you're trying to make a good accurate shot as an infantryman, you might well do the same thing, if you know to do that. Maybe you're a hunter in your civilian life or something.
Yes, of course, right. Okay, well, I'm going to give that a go. See how close I can get.
Putting it in nice and tight.
Yeah.
A bit of
solid recoil. Yeah, it definitely feels.
And I notice you're bringing it down to cycle the action, which is essentially what you have to do. The Enfield and others, you can cycle in the shoulder, which means you don't disturb your sight picture so much.
Yep, okay.
More rapid follow-up shots with a bit of precision.
And they get so quick at doing that, don't they?
Yes, yeah, very hard to do with this, if we're comparing those two.
Right, okay, I'll bear that in mind.
Free to try doing it in the shoulder, but I'm not sure it will work for you.
I'm going to try this round to bring it up and see if I can cock it at the shoulder.
As well as being more awkward, you might find. I know. See,
you can see it does come back though. It's a lot more awkward.
I'm understating it.
Yeah.
you can train around these issues.
Absolutely. If, like you said, if the adrenaline's pumping, we'll find a way.
But most would agree, field is the slicker, faster action.
Up, fire off the last round.
Good. I mean, despite my griping, you've done really well there. So
I'm happy with that.
Although it feels clunkier, and you didn't get on with the sights, maybe you've done just as well.
Just as well. So across the bolt actions, across all of the belligerents in the Second World War, we're not seeing too much difference in accuracy and firepower, really.
Honestly, this is a bit like the old Spitfire Messerschmitt argument. The pilot, the shooter, makes so much more of a difference. Where you can argue a real qualitative difference, I think, is having 10 rounds in the rifle ready to go. So if you're in anything like close quarters, you've got that firepower advantage. But of course, that pretty much disappears as soon as you fired your 10 shots. You're back to it being a 5-loader, which is what this is. So there isn't as much to choose between these as you'd think. The connoisseurs, the purists, they might lean toward the Enfield, but this is so iconic in its own right. I think we have to put them level on that, in terms of iconic status, at the very least.
A feature of almost every World War II movie to date, the toggle-locked, recoil-operated Luger pistol was initially developed to improve upon the Borhardt C93, a semi-automatic pistol designed in the last decade of the 1800s. Patented by the renowned Austrian firearm designer Georg Luger 5 years later, the Pistol Parabellum 1908, or P08 as it was officially known, would go on to be adopted by the German army and see extensive service during World War I and throughout the Second World War. The Luger pistol, Jonathan, I always associate it with Nazi high command, but it's actually used in the First World War, isn't it? What are the origins of the semi-automatic pistol? Is it the first to be introduced in warfare?
So it's not the first to be produced. It's probably not even the first to see action, but it's up there. It's one of the. It's maybe the first truly combat-capable self-loading pistol. That's a subjective comment.
Yeah.
You have the C96, famously, the broom-handle Mauser, emerges first produced in 1897, and it sees limited military procurement by some nations, but the nations of the world are still feeling their way with self-loading pistols. So 1904, the German Navy adopts a version of this. 1908 for the P08, P08. Parabellum is its true correct name, but Georg Luger, the designer, being so associated with the design, everyone knows it as the Luger. Anyone that doesn't have a need for a rifle, certainly before the submachine gun comes in and before other things come in, you're going to get issued one of these. So machine gun crews would be one example. It's a defense weapon, just as it is in other nations. So it goes much further back than the First World War. In fact, it's being replaced in the Second World War by the P38.
Right.
And it's much broader than just officers. But yeah, we always think of the war movies.
Talk to me a bit about the design of the weapon itself. Looks very different to what the US are using.
Yep.
A very different design.
Sure. So admittedly, the P38 has that sticky out barrel at the front as well, and almost looks a bit retro certainly by today's standards. The all-enclosing slide of the Browning designs, the FN designs, the Colt, same guy designing them all, has become the standard look for a pistol. And so any time we see something skinny sticking out the front, we think, oh, it's a bit old-fashioned. I certainly don't think it would have been seen that way in the 40s, although it's an old, it's introduced in 1908 and it's the standard issue pistol throughout the First World War for just about everybody. I don't think they would have seen it as antiquated necessarily. In fact, there would have been a certain amount of fondness towards it. It was the main difference apart from the barrel is the toggle. So it's a toggle locked system. I'll just lift that part way up.
Yeah.
And you see it breaks like your knee joint does.
Yeah.
And it works in much the same way. So it resists the pressure of the cartridge that way, but as the whole, a bit like a slide operated pistol, as it comes to the rear, these very distinctive toggles here, these ears, hit this ramp and they get forced upwards by the action of the cartridge. To load it, you do that yourself anyway. So those two things, the skinny barrel and the toggle, and they are part and parcel of each other. And this is a refined version of the 1893 Borchardt pistol, which really does look very steampunk, and it has the spring that's nicely concealed in here now and makes it look more modern, is hanging out the back, and it looks really weird. So they took a very promising design, but far too clunky for combat, and turned it into a very effective combat pistol. It is perhaps aging, but it's still very capable. It's still 8 rounds. The downside is really the cost of making it.
And how could we tell the difference between a First World War Luger and a Second World War Luger?
So there's no change functionally speaking. You might sometimes see different patterns of grip, magazine base plate. The finish, so this is actually quite a nicely finished one. They do get a bit more rough and ready as the war goes on. The real giveaway is only in the detail of the markings. So we have that tiny little eagle with the Nazi symbol there. Yeah, the Waffenamt marks, essentially inspection marks, acceptance marks. And we have a 42 there, which is 1942.
Yeah,
tells
makes sense.
Where when it comes from. And that code there is a code for the Mauser company. So we know this one was made by Mauser, and we know it was done in the 40s, if we didn't have the date. So you wouldn't know is the answer unless you really looked at it in detail.
The adoption of the pistol also marked the first widespread use of the 9mm Parabellum cartridge, smaller in height and diameter to the .45 ACP, developed by Luger specifically for the firearm.
as you said, the round itself is ubiquitous nowadays, but it's still different to the Colt. The Colt is packing more of a punch with the 45. Do you see huge discrepancies in terms of the effectiveness of this, the deadliness of the weapon compared to the Colt?
I really don't, and I think, you know, this is debated endlessly online and in real life. It's the stopping power. And it comes down to capacity, and in this case, you're not really getting much more capacity. You're only getting one more round than a 1911. But in a modern context, capacity, the smaller diameter round means more rounds. You know, Glock 17 has 17 rounds in it. Beretta, 15 rounds in it. The Browning, 13 rounds, and that's from an earlier period. So as soon as it becomes possible to cram more rounds in, it's possible with the 9mm much more than it is with the 45. So you either want the big old round that you think is putting people down harder and quicker, debatable, or you want higher capacity, and often the thought was in Europe, both with the 7.63 Mauser and with the 9mm, more penetration. A bit like with a sword, you know, you want a long pointy sword for getting as far into the human body as possible, because you're going to hit something vital. So do you want a big old hole in the enemy, to put it bluntly, or do you want to reach a vital organ? And it's an ongoing debate. 9mm versus 45, still with us today.
Well, let's see how it performs on the range, Jonathan. First up is the Luger. 8 rounds, semi-automatic. It's pretty simple, isn't it?
Simple to use. It's relatively complex for a modern pistol.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't affect me shooting it.
It shouldn't affect your accuracy.
We'll see.
4 meters out. Let's see what you can do. Top target in your own time. That's a pretty good grouping.
It is-ish. Dropped a shot there on the bottom left.
That can be forgiven.
Well, I hope so. Please forgive me, internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very, very slow, deliberate fire. That's more like plinking, target shooting, rate of fire. That's not really how you'd ever want to. Well, I guess if you could, if you had an enemy running away from you or coming at you, and you felt you had the time to squeeze off deliberate shots, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's not really the primary purpose of a pistol. But it shows that if we ignore the flyer, it's capable of some reasonable accuracy. But all pistols are useful at maybe 10 meters. You know, unless you've got a lot of skill and you're calm and you're able to make the most of them. They're self-defense weapons for close quarters.
So you could be firing that at 3 times the speed if you wanted to, but again, it's that balance, accuracy versus fire rate.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage of a self-loader is you can fire it with a bit more accuracy at a higher rate with practice. You do need practice to be able to do that, otherwise your shots are going to go astray. No one's firing with 2 hands at this time.
I was going to ask about that, whether you did it with the one hand.
Yeah, it comes from target shooting, essentially. It's long-range fire. Fairbairn and Sykes, the people who trained SOE in the UK, and then the OSS in America, and they have their own team as well. They are doing the modern pistol, two-handed pistol grip for long-range fire, for a steadier shot. But it's just not done in the way that it is now, universally. Now there is a feature that helps with the way I was shooting it, but is even more important for rapid fire, is this steep, raked grip angle here. It gives the pistol its iconic look.
Yeah.
It's very steeply raked, and that allows, in theory, for a natural point. Like if I point with my finger, it should be much the same as pointing with the gun.
Because you're not. It almost allows you a more natural, straight.
Yeah.
Horizontal.
Well, as long as you're holding it, weirdly, it makes it a bit harder for a modern two-handed grip, but for instinctive shooting from the waist, the James Bond thing was a thing at the time. You could shoot from the waist and you'll look where you're pointing naturally, so you probably hit, certainly at this range. And even if you take a more deliberate stance, the sights align very naturally. You're not having to do too much adjustment of the aim, and it's all down to that grip angle. And pistols today are almost still chasing that, but a lot of people prefer the 1911s grip angle.
Well, it's a good start. Let's up the ante a bit with the bolt action.
Yep.
From a flashy sidearm to the tried and tested primary weapon of the German army, the Karabiner 98K was one of the final developments in the long list of military rifles produced by Mauser, the leading German arms manufacturer. An improvement on an earlier model developed from the Gewehr 98 rifle used during the First World War, the Karabiner 98K immediately became the standard issue of the Wehrmacht, with close to 15 million being produced from 1935 to the end of the war.
Jonathan, the Kar 98K, this is the standard issue bolt action for the Germans. Now, interestingly, whilst the US go for the semi-automatic rifle, the Germans stick with their good old bolt action. Why do they do that?
Well, the first thing to say is that they are working behind the scenes on self-loading rifles, as almost everybody is. Even in the UK, we're just as wedded to the bolt-action rifle as the Germans were, if not more so. There's still test and evaluation of current designs going on every few years to see, is it time to jump on board the self-loading rifle wagon? And initially, the Germans decide, no, this is 1935, don't forget. They know what's happening, so they are arming up first. And so this is introduced in 1935 as an improved model of the existing Gewehr 98, 98 being 1898, which is when this was originally introduced. So it's very much, mechanically, it's a contemporary of the Enfield, of the Springfield. It's the ultimate iteration, really, of that very good Mauser bolt-action design. But it's now coming into an era when you have more rapid-fire weapons.
And of course, you mentioned the Mauser Gewehr 98. That's the rifle they're using in the First World War. Very effective. How does this compare to that rifle? What are the improvements that they make?
So it's happening a lot later, but the Germans realised the same thing that the Brits and the Americans did, which is that you don't need a 30-inch barrel full-length rifle and a 20-inch barrel carbine or something for your cavalry, artillery, whatever else. You can get by with, well, more than get by, perfectly adequate to have a 20, 24-inch barrel rifle. The SMLE, so the Brits did it in 1902, going into the First World War with a short rifle. The Americans do it in 1903 with the Springfield. The Germans kind of a little bit late to the party with the short rifle, usually called a short rifle or a universal rifle. But this barrel length does the job, does almost every job, even for sniping. You know, this thing gets modified for sniper scopes, just like the other rifles do as well.
So there are some modifications that get made, but for all intents and purposes, it's still a standard bolt action taking 5 rounds. Why haven't they perhaps maybe gone to 10 rounds like the Lee Enfields?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Boiling it right down, it matters to you and I, if we're conscripted and sent to the front, that we might start the fight with 10 rounds. That seems like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want 10 rounds? Once you've fired those 10 rounds that are in that Enfield, you are reloading from 5-round stripper clips, just like this. So, do you stick with that and give your soldiers that, in theory, slight edge, bearing in mind lots of other weapons in use on the battlefield at the same time? Does it really matter if Private Jones has 10 rounds or 5? Not at the macro level. At the micro level, yes, please, I want 10 rounds. The upsides of going 10 rounds, much slimmer. So there's an aesthetic angle to this, in that for drill and parade, you have a nicer looking rifle. That's a minor concern, but it is a concern.
Important, yeah.
More importantly, you're using a bit less in the way of metal to make that extended external magazine. You're making it less vulnerable to impact. Now, I haven't read or seen anything about serious issues with dented magazines, but in theory, if you get a dent in an Enfield magazine, you've got a feed stoppage. So, in the scheme of things, a little bit conservative to try to not up the capacity. Now, in the First World War, they had 20-round magazines for these as an option for trench fighting, because it was recognised that in trench fighting, yes, you do want higher capacity. But for the traditional role of the rifleman, 5 was seen to be enough.
So it's all about reliability. And, of course, you mentioned before that they were, at the same time, perhaps in the background, working on these semi-automatic rifles. Are they just far more rare than this rifle at this point? Are they not? They're still not making it standard issue, are they?
Well, having armed up en masse for the great conflict that's coming, they've kind of made the decision for the time being. So by default, you're not going to be able to introduce at scale a self-loading rifle because you've already put your eggs in this basket.
Yes.
Now, by 1941, there are actual troop trials going on of the Gewehr 41, which is their first attempt at a self-loading rifle. There's all sorts of politics and cock-ups and delays with getting a functioning service rifle that's semi-automatic, and we don't see that until the Gewehr 43 in 1943, which then takes time to mass produce and get in the hands of soldiers. And then we have another weapon coming along, well, 2 actually, that complicate the picture further. So in the meantime, the German soldier is literally soldering on with essentially Victorian technology. Yes, it's shorter, lighter, handier, quicker to bring into the aim, and it has open sights, so you're not having to center your eye in that ring, which is more of a target sight thing. They've gone the SMLE route of an open sight, so at the combat sight range, 100 meters, you just put the thing in the thing and pull the trigger, a little bit simpler. And then you still have the ability to scale it all the way up to a frankly hilarious 2,000 meters. But that's not uncommon for a service rifle of the day. The idea being that if you haven't got a machine gun, you can still project fire en masse with rifle fire at insane ranges. Same thing is on the Enfield as well.
And of course you can add the sniper scope as well. So this is also used by German snipers.
It is. In basically a common theme is that the standard service rifle of each nation gets adapted as a sniper rifle. Now, it's not like the games. You can't just slap on a scope.
No.
This has to be modified at an arsenal or from the factory to take a scope.
Can't just press X.
Sadly not, no. And same goes for any other. The only attachments are the standard bayonet, which we haven't got with us here today. A little bit of a hazard on the range to have a bayonet. And that's kind of it. There are attachments developed for rifles, even suppressors, grenade cup launchers, that kind of thing. The only one that sees any significant use is the grenade launcher, and of course the bayonet.
And there's obviously going to be this huge debate. In war, it's never a case where it's a one-on-one. But I'm interested how this compares to the M1 Garand. You've got on the one hand a semi-automatic rifle that's firing 8 rounds, and then you've got your bolt action with 5 rounds. I mean, it seems obvious, but I'm guessing, as you mentioned with the reliability, it was more of a fair fight perhaps than we give credit for.
We tend to boil it down to one-on-one because it sort of makes intuitive sense. But of course, you are going up against an army, a squad, a platoon, whatever, with your squad or platoon or whatever. So yeah, you are going to be engaging individuals, and that individual might be engaging you back, but he might well be shooting one of your friends, or not shooting at all, or whatever. So it's not the Messerschmitt Spitfire comparison.
No, exactly, yeah. Or a video game where you're one-on-one.
Yeah, which is dangerous enough to make as it is, but it's definitely not that. The differences matter much less. But having said that, if you are a soldier, or even at the squad level, you want to be armed with self-loading rifles.
I suppose if you've got the choice, you're probably going to go with the Garand if you had a choice of.
Absolutely. Captured Garands were used, as all captured Allied weapons were in one way or another. And of course, as the self-loading rifles, the Gewehr 43s filter in, they're used at a significant scale, but they're not ubiquitous in the same way that the Garand is. So there would have been an element to the German soldier's psyche, I think. The Allies are terrified of, some of them at least, of facing the MG42, devastating defensive machine gun. The German soldier might be thinking, I don't really want to go up against this 12-man squad of semi-automatic riflemen because I've only got this. Yeah. So maybe more of a psychological thing.
The majority of soldiers who had no choice but to stick with their trusty bolt-action rifle were given 50 to 60 rounds of 7.92 Mauser cartridges, divided into stripper clips of 5 fed into the receiver. Itching to test my marksmanship with this weapon noted for its accuracy, it was time to set up some targets and head up the range.
Okay, this is the bolt action that I can fire, the Kar 98K. Let's see how it's loaded.
Yeah, well, it's very similar to the US Springfield.
Stripper clip in the top.
Yeah, 5-round stripper clip. You've got a guide there for the clip. And then we close the bolt on the top round. Put it on safe so I can hand it over to you.
Yep, okay. That's where I take over. Far more of a kick on this one, for sure.
You think?
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
You're the expert, but that's what it feels like.
It's very subjective.
I think I was way off on that one.
Yeah, still going in the right place. Good. There we are, right in the middle, it's doing well.
Right. Bullseye. Maybe
no,
not.
That's good. You don't necessarily want the bullseye, you want a smaller group. Okay, we are clear.
Okay, I'll hand that back.
Give that to me, or just...
So I certainly felt a bigger kick on that one. You said it's all subjective, right?
It is. Well, it's partly to do with the length. Well, length of the stock, your proportions, how well you're pulling it into your shoulder, what you're wearing.
Yeah.
All factors in. On paper, they should be very similar recoil, but it is very subjective.
And how does it look? My eyesight's not great from this distance, but
honestly, again, it's very similar to what you did with the Springfield.
Yeah.
Similar size group. You sort of chased it around a bit, and then you punched 2 in the middle to finish. So it's a decent group for standing when you've not shot one before.
That's what you get with the bolt actions, you know. It's good accuracy.
Now, you and I should probably be able to put them through the same hole.
Yeah.
But we'd need a bit of training for that.
It's true.
Hi there, I'm Dan Snow, and if you love history, you know that History Hit is on a mission to bring the past to life. Every week, we travel the world to film original and in-depth documentaries. And now History Hit has launched a YouTube membership to give you access to even more films released weekly. You heard it here first, folks. Join now to make sure you never miss out on exclusive documentaries on topics like newly discovered shipwrecks or the clash of gladiators. We cover all periods, from Pompeii to D-Day. Click the join button below this video and see for yourself what History Hit has to offer. We can't wait to have you join the team.